I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue.
I mean, Keir Starmer's not.
Well, he did make a call about this.
No, Keir Starmer is every bit as enslaved as Donald Trump is. It is illegal. It is a crime for which you can be arrested in Britain right now, criticizing Israel.
I want to cut my cock off and scramble my brain with fucking fluoride. I'm gonna win because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I can't believe the dollars are this high.
It's a society that hates God. It's a society where the family is completely deconstructed and destroyed. It's a society that hates Nazis but loves communism.
You're always confronted with the same stupid question. You know, does Israel have a right to exist? Does Israel have a right to exist? The real question at this point is whether the rest of the world has an obligation to put an end to this. Put an end to this. Put an end to this.
Hey guys, how's it going? Matt from Foul Ball Productions here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're doing well because I'm doing phenomenally. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm back up. I don't know what was going on. The last stream just was not working. Everyone was complaining that it was buffering. So I'm live now again. Sorry. I got it. I'm looking at it in the background. Everything says excellent. Got all the right ear markers. Internet speed is fast. Hopefully it works this time. I don't really know. Sorry about that. Hi, Frankie. I don't know what's going on there, but my bad. Yeah, okay. So we're back to the right-wing polls. Hi, this is the right-wing polls. We talk about all the conservative right-wing conversations that go on the internet. I did all this. I did the whole intro. I talked for 30 minutes. That's all just gone now. Just wiped away. But we're back. We are back. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be having a conversation here about Tom Foe. We're going to be doing Tom Foe's video, Joey's video. Jesus, this sucks. I'm really frustrated that that happened like that. That was really annoying. I don't know what was going on. The stream just wasn't working. Everybody was complaining about how it was buffering and not live and blah, blah, blah. But it's up now, so we're doing it. We're going to just pick up exactly where we left off. We're talking about Tom Foe's video on Vivek. I'm reacting to him reacting to Vivek Ramaswamy. And indeed, Frankie, it was Mossad. So let's go. And let me know if we still have problems. So far in the back, my metrics, my data says excellent. It says the stream is an excellent quality. So hopefully this will work this time. I don't know. Here we go.
Relax, and let's see what this American patriot has to say.
That guy, he's like screeching. That's the thing. It's like, it's, you know, it's kind of embarrassing. Like, it's funny. And he's also like, yeah, it's like, cool, boo Vivek, he sucks and all. But he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, bruh. Not exactly. This does not go hard.
What's going on, guys? So we have a discussion tonight where usually what you do in a speech like this, political speech like we have a lot of, you tell the audience what they want to hear, they all clap, you tell them more what they want to hear, and then you all go home. Yeah, it's pretty boring. We're going to do things a little differently tonight.
What's funny is like that he's saying that. I'm like, yeah, actually, I agree with that sentiment. It's so gay. Like, so many political speeches are just gay. Like, it's just red meat for the base, telling you what you want to hear, platitudes, nonsense, this structured way of speaking where it's like, okay, and here's when you applause. I'm going to hit you with the punchline, pow, and it really does suck. So it's interesting that he's saying like, oh, no, we're not going to do that this time. We're actually going to restructure. We're going to have a different conversation. And like, okay. And then you go on to listen to the conversation and it's just like, it's like MAGA slop. It's like when punk rock went corporate, you know, it's like all the interesting parts are shaved off and it's just this like processed, like digestible slop that is not for anybody. It doesn't excite anybody. It doesn't speak to the heart of any issue. It's a corporate slogan, and it's repulsive. It's repugnant. It's like I find him so unlikable because of exactly how insincere it is. Like, even JD, like, when you listen to him speak, it feels like that's really who he is. You know, he's very good at pretending that he's this guy, that he's just a regular dude who's kind of just as confused by this whole thing as me and you. You know, as you and I, it's all a little bit above my pay grade. But it's like, yeah, that worked when you weren't the vice president. Now that you're the vice president, that doesn't work. But he still is good at delivering it. He's still like a good political performer. Vivek is not. Vivek is a transparent anchor baby scam artist fuck. So it's like, he's like, hey, we're not going to do things regular. We're going to do them worse, actually. What's up, ZebBoykin? How you doing, brother? Good to see you, man. I'm like panicking. I'm panicking, but I'm like Sneeko. I'm just like looking back and making sure that it says excellent on the stream latency, because the last one just was unwatchable, apparently. Last one was just everybody just couldn't watch it. They're like, yeah, it's buffering like crazy. So I had to restart the whole rig and reconnect the internet, and it looks like it's working now. But good to see you, brother. Good to see you. AI world champion. Timeout for Noi not Woids Goyim. Lol. I don't know what the hell you're saying there, brother. I bet it was so based, though. I bet it was like so fucking based. I bet so many hoes were scared. I don't know.
If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. I'll give you the truth.
We're going to do things a little differently tonight, all right, boys? I'm not going to be telling you what you want to hear. I'm going to be telling you what you need to hear as an American, as a patriot, as a leader. I'm a leader. Look at me. Look at my shoes.
The real divide. The real divide. This is what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about the real divide in the country. It's not Republicans and Democrats. It is between. You want to give a speech about Israel, my man? Well, you can get on when they give you a slot, all right? So until.
It's so funny. It's like, oh, you wanted to get into the actual real issues? You want to have like a conversation about what's on the tip of everybody's tongue nowadays in the political realm, left and right, up and down, young and old. Everyone's talking about it. Well, when they give you a slot, then you can come speak. It's like, bro, you're such a fraud. Like, you don't even have anything prepared. Even fake slop. You don't even have fake slop prepared. If you're a savvy operator, you got to be like, yeah, you know what? That is a subject a lot of people have a lot of things to say about. You know what? We are going to get into that tonight. Not right now, but we are going to talk about that because everybody's talking about it, and it's impossible not to talk about it. And he's just like playing like I'm the one with the microphone card. You're like, shut up, you jeet. Shut the fuck up.
You sit down, and then the organizers think this eloquent young man you want to hear from him. That's up to you guys. Spend your time wisely.
I love that, bro. He's like, you want to give a speech? You want to give a speech? Everyone's like, yeah, let him talk. And he's like, oh, you can't do it. You got to apply. They got to accept you. It's a whole process. But I'm accepted, so I'm going to talk about the will divide. And I wonder, Vivek, what is this will divide you speak of?
I'll tell you.
Yeah, pray tell, Mr. Ramaswamy. What is this real divide? Enlighten us. I don't see it. I definitely don't see that there's boomers who have been so cooked by propaganda over the years that they worship Israel above their own nation, above the health of their own family and sons and grandsons. I see that. I see, any mention of like Jewish power still being like this thing that you got to come after. Even guys who are based and right wing, like Tucker Carlson, they don't touch it. They don't get into it. Everything's a smokescreen. It's about something else. And then you have, the radical left that want nothing more than to destroy the very fabric of this nation, to dethrone any kind of what they would consider like white European power at all, destroy our institutions, upend our God, our churches, and he's going to tell us what the real divide is. Oh, what's the real divide? I thought it was all those things I just mentioned, but what is it exactly? Let me know. Let me know what it is.
We've got. I'll tell you about. Let's say data centers for a second. We'll hit this. I'm not against data centers. I'm against you paying for data centers. All right, that's actually the problem, and you got to resort to the divide between winners and whiners, between those who want America to win and those who want America to whine. That is the true division in this country.
There are those.
I mean, that's like it's the new. Just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, it's the new. Just a firm handshake. A firm handshake, and you show up on time. You know, it's like this thing. It's like the walls are crumbling, the buildings are on fire. You know, like the based right wing fascists who were going to save it all did nothing but facilitate the powers that want it to continue. Hey, you know what you got to do? You got to stop whining. Oh, is that what we have to do? We need to just shut the fuck up about all these things, about the fact that we're fighting yet another war for Israel, which I will mention. I will give it time to plug my video. The big one, the Iraq War one. I did a video on that, so please go watch it because the algorithm just will not give it any traction. It's really good, and it's exactly about this whole same shit. But yeah, is it those things, Vivek? Are those the issues that not only did Trump not stop inflation, he actually has accelerated it? He didn't cut government spending. He actually added to it. The debt is even worse. Gas is even more expensive. Is it? Are we just don't whine? What? Should we fucking scam? Should we scam our way into wealth like the fucking Trump family? Should we come up with some kind of shit coin and rug pull friends and family? What should we do? Did we not stop whining? We want to win or we want to whine? It's like, yeah, winning would have looked like kicking out, at least 1 million illegals a year, at least bare minimum. And we're not even on track to do 1 million over his entire term. So, yeah, no, I'm gonna complain here, Vivek. I've got some complaints, buddy.
Who want America to win, and there's those who want America to whine. And dude, this is the most boomer-coded shit I've ever heard in my life. And mind you, that's why they talk the way that they do. Not just Vivek, but so many different people in MAGA right now. All of their slogans, all of their rhetoric, everything is boomer-coded, bro. Who the fuck says that? And gosh darn it, we just want to be winners. And, I don't want you to pay for data centers. I want data centers to pay for themselves. If we want to win against China, the whiners, the winners, now they're trying to basically do this thing where they're like, oh, you don't want data centers? What are you, a bitch? What are you crying? You fucking pussy? You fucking bitch pussy? What a loser.
They are trying to do that. He is trying to reframe the conversation. Like, it's gay to not want data centers, right? That's something a chick would say. You're not a chick, are you? It's like the same thing they tried to pull with with being critical of Israel. They're like, that's brown coded. That's third world coded. It's like, bro, that's so not going to work. And then especially coming from you of all people. We didn't forget about how you insulted the work ethic of every single American. And how we need, hordes of Indians to come here, not assimilate, and take jobs and work slave wages. And I think it was Joey. Early on, we're gonna do a Joey Oliver video later on. But he did a video about like Indian work culture, and it's a hellscape. It's horrifying. It's like they're not even working hard. They're working scams, even inside a workplace. It's not even like the businesses get a good deal. It's like, yeah, on paper they pay less, but their productivity's shit. And they do things to make it look like they're working. Their degrees are not real. Like, there's so many things about it. And he's just going to, he's just going to be like, Americans don't have a work ethic. You know what? Then fucking go where you think the work ethic is up to your standards. Go home. Go home, Vivek.
want to be a winner, bro. I want unlimited Indians here right now.
And what we really need, and I think the problem is the real threat to the country, I'll start with this, is the rise of socialism in the
My favorite joke about that, Frankie, was this dude Sencha Dildo, who's a listener on my other channel on Foulball Productions. He called it Operation Pooper Clip. I was like, fucking brilliant.
United States of America. This is spreading across the country like wildfire. And the basic premise of socialism, you got Mamdani, you got people in Minnesota, you got people in California. It could happen in the rest of the country too. And the core premise of socialism is that somebody else's success.
Bro, we know the problem with socialism, man. Are you seriously gonna walk us through, you know, like a fucking college sophomore who discovered libertarianism for the first time? Like, bro, we know the problem with, we're not advocating for socialism. You're talking to the Republicans. That's baseline. Boomers, that's their whole thing. Are you seriously? You feel like you need to like stress this point? And like the socialism thing, it's like, look, what you're not dealing with is that the socialists, they have a point. Things are too expensive. Healthcare is insanely overpriced. People can't afford homes. They can't live in the cities that they want to live in. They have a point. Their solutions are shit, but they have a point. They have a reason to complain that's accurate. And you want to just shit on, it's just, you're like, dude, you're not hearing us, man. We're not sitting here saying like, oh, hey, you know what? Trump didn't work out. I guess we need to go vote for a race communist. It's like, no, you fucking jerk off. You're traitors. You all sold us out. There is no alternative. It's either, you know, the most obnoxious, awful, progressive, you know, big government slop shit and wars, or sorry, like, and like, you know, feminism and third worldism and like anti-white like laws, or, you know, whatever that was 30 years ago. And that's just the Republican Party. That's all it is. It's just shores up the gains of the liberals from 30 years ago. That's all it is. That's all you get. You know, if you remember that, like, it's even part of their branding. If you remember, like, Trump said, that's what they kept saying. Oh, Trump's just a Democrat from the 90s. I mean, like, that's literally the playbook. That's how they market it. The problem with socialism is that it's Jewish. I mean, I don't know if that's the problem. It's not like if it was a Christian socialism, now it would magically make sense and work. But, you know, it might have a better chance. But it can't work in the United States of America. It's like, first of all, like, what more taxes, more government spending? How is that working out so far? How's that working out? So we spend more on healthcare in this country than the military, and I don't know anybody with good healthcare. I don't know a single person with good healthcare. Everyone I know, it's like it's a fortune, and the premiums are a fortune, and so what? More of that, more government of that. That'll work out this time. It's like, this is the thing, was no one here is advocating for socialism. What are you fucking talking about? We're advocating for nationalism.
Success takes away from your ability to succeed. It views success as a zero-sum high, zero-sum economics. That when something good happens to somebody else, that necessarily means that something bad happens to you. This is the worldview that's already swept the left. We'll get to the right in a moment.
God.
But this is the worldview that has already swept the left. All right, you got to have somebody who's
holy shit. You thought that was gonna like land? People were gonna be like, I'm gonna say it again, preach it, brother. Oh yeah, amen. Like, yeah, nigga. We fucking know. We know. It's not a new talking point. They didn't just suddenly start preaching socialism. That's what they've always been about. What is this, like, this fucking excuse me, this third grade deconstruction of socialist theory? Yeah, we know, motherfucker. We're on the right. Obviously, we're not socialists. What? Like, get to it, asshole.
Successful, penalize, because that means it comes at your expense. How do you do it? Tax and spend more of the government's money. Here's the problem with that.
Yawn.
When the government resorts to, in the name of standing for working people, printing more money by taxing the people who are producing, it actually hurts the very people who they were supposed to help. Let's go through the story after COVID. After COVID, the federal government printed more money in those 5 years than it has at most points in modern history.
Yeah, I'm not pro-socialist. I think the libertarians are 100% right in their economic assessments. I don't think their social policies are right. I don't think that I do agree with the far right that that liberty is not the highest political value, that order is. I agree with that. At least, especially in our current dynamic, right? If we had a 90% white country and people, there was a sense of community and a sense of like, instead of just being aggrieved constantly, then you could have more of like a libertarian style country, because then the country, it would be a natural order. And like, you know, churches would fill in a lot of the roles that like the government programs fill in, like the way it used to be, right? But we don't have that. We don't have that now. So if you like don't maintain order, if you don't like force the situation to correct itself, it will not get better by virtue of the populace just doing the right thing. But I do think the libertarians are correct with their diagnosis of the economics of all of it. It doesn't work. It kills innovation. It also, we already spend trillions. How's everyone's life? Everyone's life great? Everyone just has all the things that they need. They feel really secure. You know, you got a strong 401k and a good house and a nice rate on your mortgage. You know, it's like everyone's fucking drowning, motherfucker. Like I can't believe how expensive gas is. And you know, I don't know. I'm kind of babbling, but it's just frustrating. What a cheesy backdrop to have Republicans pass this session that has benefited. What cheesy backdrop? What have Republicans passed this session that has benefited Americans? Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, the best you can say is that Trump shut down the border, which is like, okay, bare fucking minimum. Bare minimum. We didn't build a wall. Wall's not even being talked about. Wall is not even a thing anymore. Not even a topic of conversation. I haven't heard anyone in the administration mention the wall in like a year. So yeah, it's shut down until someone comes along and opens it. It's the same play. It's the same thing that they would do to the left, right? The left did this for years with abortion, right? They never pushed any kind of federal legislation to legalize it. Not that I'm in favor of that, but I'm just saying, but because every cycle they could hang it over your head. Oh, the right's going to get rid of your right to abortion. So they never had to finish the issue, because this way it was always like a chip they could play in every election. And the same thing they're doing with like immigration and the wall. They're like, oh, the left's going to be worse. And the left will indeed be worse, but the right will only be just marginally better, just slightly better. You know, the doors won't be kicked wide open. We will still have hundreds of thousands of H-1B Indians and Chinese students, and essentially a policy of amnesty, as in we're not deporting people. So it's like they're just going to dangle it over our head because they're not actually going to solve any of the fucking problems.
Arguably ever. Trillions of dollars of our taxpayer money was diluted when the federal money's printer went on hyperdrive. That was in the name of helping working people in the country. But the problem,
I mean, Geoverse, I think you're living in your own bubble, brother. The left right now is ascendant. I'm not happy about it, but the left is ascendant. All these DSA pukes, all these fucking anti-American third worldists, like they're doing great, actually. You even see the messaging in the Democratic Party is starting to shift to placate that because it has so much motion. It isn't. The country did not wake up. The country, in fact, sadly, is actually more disillusioned now. Now, the smart players, like, you know, like me and you, guys like me and you, we get it. But, you know, have refined their principles better. But many people are just like, I guess there's just no one. And they're not really actually playing the game anymore. And they're just like, I guess if it's not Trump, we're not going to do it. And they've stepped away from politics. You can see it across all political commentators. No one's numbers are going up. Everyone, even the biggest people, their numbers are all going down from where they were a year ago. People are disillusioned. The left is not cooked, as much as I'd love to believe it. It's not true. They're actually ascendant right now, and they're a big threat. And the reason being is because the right has proved to be a failure. The Trump, MAGA, all that has been a fraud. and it is a complete failure. They're not deporting the millions they promised. They started a fucking war that we're still in that is having direct economic costs on every American right now. And he just kicked the door wide open for the left to come back and take power. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, guys like you and I know the left is cooked, but they're not crushed. Trump did not crush the left because Trump isn't our guy. He's not a right-wing Caesar. He isn't. He's a scam artist. He's a fraud, dude. I mean, America is returning to God, Christ is king, all that is true, but not in the way you think. You know, it's happening to a generation of men, and I'm glad to see that. And I think the Gen Z men are base as hell. I think they're fucking tough. I think they're fucking educated, informed, badass. And I think it's going to, you know, in the coming decades is going to be a real force in the country. But right now, dude, no, you're living a bubble. Junior Williams, the wall signifies the delivery of a 10-year promise and an easy layup for Trump to claim victory. The fact that it isn't being finished and no mention of it says dark days ahead at the border. It's exactly what's going to happen, dude. It's going to be a game they'll play. There's going to be a game they'll play. The Democrats will kick the door open again, and the Republicans will be like, well, if you want that done, you got to vote for Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance or whoever, or Vivek. But they're not serious about it. They're not serious about it.
Was that actually helped the people who own people who own assets, people who own stocks, people who own
Geoverse. And you think our choice for Trump was the right choice? I can grant your argument, but still better than Kamala as president. Well, okay, so the counter argument to that goes that yes, obviously Trump's a better president than Kamala Harris, maybe the worst president in history. However, it would have been the least effective presidency in the history of presidents because had she actually taken power, every single thing she ever tried to do would just be stonewalled by the American public, by Congress, by the Senate. You know, she wouldn't have a chance to accomplish anything. And odds are we probably wouldn't be in this war with Iran because everyone would be like, no, look at the Democrats want us to go to war, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't work that way. Her own base wouldn't support it. The problem was we had Trump, and there's just so many rubes, you know, I count myself amongst them a little bit, that just like, we're like, yeah, you know, he said he's going to give us the golden age, and he's going to give us the golden age. And obviously that didn't happen. Obviously that didn't work out like that. So had Kamala gone in, she would have been so bad that it wouldn't have been Trump in 2020 or in 2030. It would be, who knows, hope maybe a new Caesar, maybe a real right-wing authoritarian who could actually bring order back to the country and not, you know, not fumble the deportations like Trump did. And this is the thing too, right? He did it exactly wrong. Trump did it exactly wrong because not only is he not doing numbers of mass deportations, but the left thinks he is. My mom and her friends are all like boomer libs. They think that Trump's deporting like 1 million people a month or whatever. That's what they think because they saw it on TV, how extreme it looked. You know, when he just bluntly, without any precision, just runs into, you know, Minnesota and 2 activists get killed. And then he just abandons the whole thing. But they don't know that. The news didn't follow up and say, hey, you know, he's not deporting anybody. They're like, stay mad about the situation. So not only did we not get the deportations, but we pissed off the left so that they're even more hungry to get back in power and to stop this, even in the ineffective way that it's going. So no, actually, it might have been better if Kamala was president because the decisive response to that would have been so overwhelming. We may have actually gotten a serious, powerful right-wing authoritarian that could do these things instead of, you know, pander to you and I saying they're going to do the things and then doing the weakest, shittiest version of them.
The asset prices that go up, that was great for them. But for the rest of the state of Ohio, where we are right now, the main asset you own is your home. Your home then goes up on paper. The government says, congratulations, you're wealthy. Your home's worth a lot more. What about our energy? The problem is that people then pay that much more property taxes.
Okay, I let that go for a little bit, and there's a lot to unpack. So first,
Also, just Vivek, what about sovereignty, man? What about the sovereignty of the American people? What about that? What about when we say we don't want to go to war with Iran, then we don't go to war with Iran? Like, it's the most unpopular war in the history of the country. You know, I was talking about this months ago, and somebody was like, "Oh, no way, Vietnam." It's like Vietnam wasn't unpopular in the beginning. It became unpopular because of how bad it went and the draft. But it wasn't unpopular in the beginning. We didn't think we could lose wars in the 60s. This was unpopular from the beginning. It had a approval rating of 30% of the Americans wanted to do it or something like that. It was like maybe 40, but the vast majority of Americans did not want us to go to war with Iran. Yet we went. Why? Because we don't have sovereignty. So how about that, Vivek? How about that? You know what? How about it's not about affordability? How about it's the fact that in a generation, white people are going to be like a significant minority inside their own country, and somehow Israel runs our military? How about those issues, dude? Those are actually really serious issues. They're more important than housing, actually.
First of all, his whole thing is socialism, and that's where the boomer-coded bullshit comes out. It's like socialism is the biggest threat to this country's sovereignty. It's socialism, which is not true at all. First of all, the rise of socialism, why is it so popular? The reason why socialism is...
Junior Williams is asking, do you think Americans will stand idly by as the country's invaded this time, or will we see a rise in vigilante border justice? I hope it doesn't come to that, but it looks to be inevitable. I don't know. I would say if the people coming here were like the people going into Europe, then you would absolutely see a rise of vigilante justice because there's so many armed Americans that would just do it. Like if it was like the gates of hell open, like in that Spanish city last week or over the weekend. Yeah, you'd see a bunch of good old boys with rifles making sure that didn't happen. And if there were rape gangs, definitely. The thing is, like the Mexican, like the Hispanics that come here, say Mexico because it's not just Mexico, they do bring gang violence, they do traffic in drugs and children, but they're generally peaceful to the populace. Like, I don't want them here, don't get me wrong, but they're not coming here and like running grooming gangs and raping hundreds of thousands of American girls. They're not they're not like kicking in doors and rioting and stuff like that. They kind of stay to themselves. Like I said, that doesn't make them okay, but I think the problem is that the death is a slow, it's like a cancer that slowly kills you. Whereas like what's going on in Europe is like it's like a knife crime. It's like happening right now in front of your face. So will Americans stand up to it? It's like probably not, because it's not like it doesn't have like this blaring siren going off in your face. It needs to be addressed right now. It's something that's like going to slowly transform the entire country into an unrecognizable place. So no. And also I don't advocate for that. Don't go out and do violence. You won't see a rise in shit. You won't do shit. What are you saying, dude? Okay, cool, bro.
So popular among younger generations is because capitalism has failed the people of this nation. Now, you can say it's crony capitalism. You can say it's because the government has fucked people over. It's because they really didn't allow a free market. It's because of COVID, because they printed so much. And
look, it's the same thing that happened in 2008. People want an alternative, right? Like the whole thing with, I don't know how old a lot of you guys are, but like in 2008, when Obama was like, running, when he got elected, the lead up to that, he had so much motion because the Bush administration was so bad and these wars were just going on endlessly, and the entire Republican establishment seemed to be completely out of touch with everybody's needs and concerns and desires to end this war. Now, meanwhile, but just to say, we didn't actually understand the dynamics back then. We didn't know that these were all wars for Israel. I mean, some people did because like Pat Buchanan was writing about it and Mearsheimer wrote the Israel lobby, but the public at large really didn't know. Now we do. So the dynamics a little bit different, but that's exactly what led to the rise of Obama. And essentially that's what gave us like the ultra woke of the 2010s was that seizing of power. And they were only able to do that because the Republicans did such a shitty job and Americans were just looking for an alternative. That's what's happening now. That's what so much of the rise of the socialist left and this DSA left is because people are like just disillusioned with the Republicans and the Trump administration because they're doing such a bad job. Because ultimately the answer, people can see that. And they're like, well, if it's not this guy, it must be that guy. Like, not everyone's as politically enlightened to realize that, no, that also won't work. We need a third option. So that's what's happening. But it's the same shit. Kick the door open for the left to seize power. And when the left seizes power, they use it. They crush their enemies. They wield the institutions like a cudgel. And they beat the shit out of their political opponents. We don't. We throw our radicals out. We distance ourselves from our right-wing radicals, and we also don't crush our enemies because it's not real. The Republicans are not a right-wing thing. They're just slightly less left than the left. That's it.
What he said about COVID is true. Them printing a bunch of money and just adding all of this currency.
Dude, nobody's talking about vigilante. No one's saying anything. No one's like saying, hey, what I'm going to start another revolution. No one's saying that. He asked a question. He said, do you think that we'll see a rise in that? And I gave him an honest answer. I didn't say I was going to do anything. Idiot. I don't advocate for vigilante violence, and I'm not suggesting that I would or that even the case calls for it. So very, very cool, very tough insight, fucking idiot. How about you actually listen to what's being said instead of just having some reflex, some response like a woman in an argument?
Into circulation did have a lot of downsides, 100%. And it did make people who owned actual assets and their net worth go up. Because, you know, you own a home, the home, you bought it for 10 pennies and now it's worth $5 billion. So of course, on paper, you have more money, you know, your assets increase. So he's not wrong. But then you saw how he's talking about like your home to a crowd of, I would, you know, imagine looks like a bunch of younger people who don't own homes. So you're saying it's like, yeah, I mean, your home goes up. It's like, dude, they don't own any of that stuff. They're already priced out. And that's kind of part of the reason why. This didn't just...
And that what Tom's talking about there is how you know how hollow Vivek is. He didn't even adjust his message for the room he's speaking to. He just has these broad, you know, MAGA, so to speak, MAGA Inc. talking points. I mean, he doesn't like... He's not even considering who's in the room. He's not worrying about addressing these people's concerns because he isn't there to service that. He's there to service some other unseen agenda, like a hand of like this tech right that he's there to. So he'll say what, and then it's not even that base, but things that sound vaguely based, where he's going to trash socialism, and all us chuds on the right will be like, yeah, I don't like socialism either, Vivek. Fucking retard.
Start because of COVID. These are issues and problems that have been going on for a long time. And when you have a system that kind of leaves out the majority of people and fucks them over, and you have a bunch of people that are just in ways they're unchecked and they can take advantage of people, like with the pharmaceutical industry, like with...
You're 100% right, Junior Williams. He says Vivek is arrogant like Byron Donald and believes he has the election in the bag. And that's exactly right, because they have all the institutional support, right? The entire GOP Incorporated has their back. I mean, those are their guys. Fishback's an outside radical, right? He's a bad motherfucker too. He's a great follow on Twitter, man. He's got so much motion. He works so hard. He grinds, dude. All he does is think about winning that election, and he's made traction. Like when he first came out, you know, when he first came onto the scene, he was polling at like 2% or something like that. And now he's like a serious contender to actually win that election. I haven't seen much polling that supports that he is leading, but he's got so much more market share, so to speak, than he did just a few months ago. He's not going anywhere in American politics. He's going to be around. He's a force. But yeah, no, of course, Byron and Vivek are the same way, because they're the establishment candidate, and the establishment is in power, and they feel protected. And look what happens when you go against the establishment on the right. You become Thomas Massey. You get crushed. You know, you get boomer AI ads that the fucking brain dead, zombified masses consume like idiots, and vote out a guy who had been in that district for 14 years. They crush, they go after you. So that's why they feel so confident. But anybody in Ohio, if anyone here in the chat is from Ohio, like, do not vote for Vivek. Do not do it, dude.
A lot of these corporations, it just is true. They fuck people over constantly. They're constantly pricing people out of their homes, pricing people out of their businesses. They're setting up this world where nobody can own anything. So a lot of people are going to turn to something like socialism. But the fact that he's saying socialism is the worst, most threatening thing to this country is complete bullshit. And it's not acknowledging the fact that there's other factors. Let's talk about the people on his side. The people that are pro quote unquote consumer, they are pro helping the normal everyday person out, but yet they're still creating loopholes for foreigners to come over here on H-1B visas to take your job.
And they don't even talk about demographics. Mass deportations was a slogan because it got people energized, but they never had any intention on actually following through on it. And you can see that obviously by the fruits of the administration. But I talked about this the last show I did here, excuse me. And it was all about JD on Rogan, and you see that JD didn't even talk about demographics. Rogan asked him point blank. He says, "Why are the cities? Why are the cities always run by Democrats? What's up with that?" And his answer was some fucking 1960s bullshit. It was essentially that, oh, well, entertainers are left wing and people kind of gravitate towards that. And it's kind of got this sort of enlightened city liberal thing. And you're like, yeah, I mean, that's part of it. The other part, the bigger part, is the demographics of the cities. And those people do not vote right wing. And that's the problem that we're all going to face for the next 10 years. In the next 10, that's what's going to be the definitive issue, is that these people vote in their own interests and they don't coincide with the native populace. That's the problem. And no mention from Conservative Inc., no mention from GOP TM, none of it. Don't hear that from JD. You don't hear it from Vivek, obviously. And they're one and the same. JD named his kid Vivek after his college roommate, which is, that's kind of weird. I have some really good friends. I don't think I would name my fucking my kid Connor or Michael because I just am so in love with my friends. I feel like that'd be a little weird. Maybe if they gave me a kidney or saved my life or something like that, Not that I wouldn't name my kids Connor or Mike, but it's just that's weird. That's fucking weird. Anyway.
Or they're still creating loopholes to where all these companies can get replaced with Indian CEOs and board of directors, and they fire 5,000 American employees and then open offices in other countries like India. So it's not even just H-1B visas, but they're constantly giving them excuses to fire Americans and move jobs outside of the country, move industry outside of the country. And then also these same people will say how they want.
So we're actually, because this stream got all fucked up and I had to start a new one, we're going to stop there. I was planning on watching more of it, but I think this is just a great video by Tom. He did a fantastic job. I listened to the whole thing earlier today, and it was really good. I'm putting the link in the chat, so if you guys want to watch it, go support Tom. Tom's the fucking man. He does great work, and this was a really strong video by him. I'd like to see more of that from him. More reacting to these fucking jokers, especially Vivek. I do want to go. I want to pivot to Joey Oliver, Right Wing Coalition's video. I said this in the last stream. If you were here, I don't know who's here from the last stream and who's new. Whatever. Joey's a Right Wing Coalition. Joey's is great. He's a great YouTuber, great essayist. Has very on point, precise political takes and oppression ability to kind of read the room, feel out the situation. But this video that he did recently, I thought was maybe one of the best he's ever done. And that's in a pretty good catalog of videos. So we're going to watch this. It's called Elon Musk Doesn't Get It. And we're going to watch it. I want to try to get through the whole thing. It's only 16 minutes, but I talk a lot.
Out of the many standard political stances that have cropped up throughout the culture over the last 10 years, there is one that is so inconspicuous and routinely said that almost nobody even bats an eye at it. It sounds perfectly reasonable to most people, and we typically hear it daily from some of the most prominent yet also half-hearted political dissenters, particularly from those who have been politically mobilized out of necessity rather than a genuine understanding of the current climate. And the sentiment...
And before he goes any further... It's exactly right. It's the people who are like gently on the right wing, like he's talking about Elon Musk here, but it's these other people like Rupert Lowe, of Restore Britain. Rogan asks him, why is there all this mass immigration? And he doesn't really have the right answer. He has this kind of vague conspiracy about how people hate Britain, and you're like, dude, yeah, but no, not like, Jesus, how do you not understand this issue? And I think so many people on the right, a lot of them are just disaffected liberals who moved to the right, but they still have like their roots in that world, and they don't want to lose credibility, or they don't want to be seen as the evil Nazis. So they don't go all in. They don't actually like stand up for the virtues and for the principles of the right. They try to be like, I'm the reasonable option. I like to massage their point of view so that it's more so it's not as offensive to the left. But who gives a shit? Don't worry about not offending the left. They're offended by your very presence. They're offended by your audacity to stand up for your race and for your country. They find that audacious. That concept makes you a villain no matter how you package it. So what you should do is just lean into it. Go all out. Tell the actual truth, and then people will follow you.
We hear often goes something like, I'm not a radical, I just have common sense. Or, I'm just a normal person from the 1990s. Yet the underlying ignorance embedded in this appeal is likely the most important political misunderstanding of the current era, because this perspective is the root of so much of the confusion that many in the older generation still have over what's really going on. Understanding the fundamental error here should help to explain why so many people still have an inability to comprehend how we have gone from Hillary Clinton being against gay marriage 2 decades ago to a tranny on the White House lawn. The first thing to...
But he's right. He's right. The cultural shift is so dramatic, and it's like, it baffles people because they don't understand it. Like they don't get, I'm reading this book right now. I'm having this guy on my channel on Tuesday, this guy Konstantin von Hofmeyer, and he was talking about just the kind of fate. I mean, the book is called The Fate of White America, and that's essentially, it's what the book's about. And he was talking about, I think it was Schmidt, I want to say Carl Schmitt, the philosopher, the German philosopher, political philosopher. And he was talking about how like liberalism is sort of a grievance, and not like liberals, like in our society, the left or whatever, like liberalism, like the theory of government that the West has broadly. And that it's a grievance-based political philosophy anyway. It's got problems with, the church having too much power, problems with monarchy. It's like the whole thing is a critical political philosophy. The problem with that is that engine needs fuel all the time, and it continues to, so it has to get more and more radical generation after generation, because that's its entire purpose, is to critique power, is to, make things even more equal, whatever that even means in practice. But that's like its goal, right? Less oppressive, less rigid, less identitarian, less nationalistic. Like it has to go that way. And there's an interesting point.
Understand here is that those who insist that they aren't radicals, but instead just a normal person, presume that there is a fixed default state for humans which is rationally self-preservational. They think that moderate is a distinct position and not something that is entirely relative. They believe that there is a productive state of moderate centrism that is essentially self-evident and always has been.
That's the fish and water problem, for sure. It's this concept that, what's normal to me is the default state. This is what's like normal, right? Just be normal. Just, do the right thing. It's like that is not a fixed thing in history. It's not like a law of nature that humans have a universal sense of what's right and what's wrong. Everyone's kind of definite. Cultures vary greatly on that very subject. Like in Africa, I don't know if it's still a thing, but for a while they were cutting women's clits off. That was like a normal practice, totally normal, totally part of the culture. It's like in Middle Eastern Arab, like intense people will get raped, stone her to death. Like they have honor killings. Like they think that's correct. That's right. There is no such thing as a default morality. I was explaining this, to my parents, but it's like, they're liberals, right? Like they're traditional Democrats. They're like, Union Democrats from like the 70s, the boomers. And they don't understand. They don't recognize the historical factors that went into what they take for granted as everyday morality, as being a decent person. That's 2,000 years of Christian society is what created that for you. That common morality. It's like you're a default Christian, even if you don't go to church, because that's what's normal for us. That's what's normal for the West. That's decency for us, because our culture was so intensely shaped by Christian morality. You take that for granted. You think that just falls out of the fucking sky, that's just normal. It is not. We forged that over generations, thousands of years, through wars of reclaiming the land. And people just don't understand that. They don't have any respect for it. They just think, oh, it's normal. It's normal for you in your day-to-day life. That's normal. That's not normal for everybody. That's not normal for the state of man, by the way, in all of history. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, giving them what do they call that? The like Johannesburg necklace or something like that. Like they put a tire. Oh, you're talking. Yeah. They put a tire full of gasoline and they just light it on fire, and that's how you die. That's their method of execution. Like, look, I'm not saying there aren't a few people I wouldn't mind seeing that happen to, but we can't. That's not the way you have a functional society.
They generally assume that a productive society is the natural end state of a bunch of humans being grouped together, and that any deviation from that state of safety and prosperity would therefore have to be the result of being knocked off course. But this assumption is entirely wrong. As the famous Rabbi Jordan B. Peterson once explained,
here you
I messaged Joey about that line. Fucking brilliant. The famous Rabbi Jordan B. Peterson. Fucking great. Golden, dude.
are in your normal state. It's like, well, no, this is not a normal state. People have been trying for 7 million years, like as people, to create a situation so complex and comfortable that a couple hundred of you can sit here, without having your hypothalamus driving you towards something and actually just listen to something for a few hours. That's not normal. That's so staggeringly abnormal that it's a miracle. The typical person, and for most of human history, it's like, you were hungry, man.
The false understanding that
Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. I mean, it took so many generations of sacrifice and abundance to be able to create complex societies that can function in a way where you have the luxury time to learn anything outside of immediate survival skills. The fact that we even have anything comfortable is the result of millions of humans working, toiling to accomplish this over generations. It is not the default stand. I mean, you look at if you look at any of these documentaries of tribes, like those tribes in the Amazon, that are just kind of stuck in time. That's all they do. It's literally all they do is work on survival. That's their entire existence, is to hunt and dry food and forage. That's all they're ever doing is surviving. We have such a complex society that you don't even need to work. You don't even need to contribute to the grander culture, and you can still survive. That's how complex and how accomplished this culture is. But that is not a normal state for man.
Materially prosperous, ordered, and just civilization is the default and normal state of humanity can have dire consequences. Because if you do not understand what is required to upkeep your society, eventually nobody will bother to propagate the foundational tenets which are required to continually uphold it. I've noted this before, but after the fall of Rome, engineers lost the mathematics required to construct freestanding domes for almost 1,000 years. These ideas, whether it is a matter of structural engineering or moral orientation, must be preserved and intentionally upheld both throughout society and across time. The preservation and improvement of wisdom and knowledge is not inevitable. Our reliance upon the momentous achievements of the past, yet
So fucking base, dude. Like, it is not an inevitable reality. We have just taken it for granted. And especially in the West, especially in post-war, post-World War II, America and Europe. Europe a little bit less because they're closer to Russia, right? And they can see these, there's all these conflicts and stuff in the 80s with Eastern Europe that like are upheaval. But us here in the the United States of America, it's like, with the exception of all the foreign wars we've gotten entangled in, life has been pretty stable here. We don't have to worry about invasions from Mexico. Canada's not going to launch a war on our northern border. There's no significant power in South America anywhere. We don't have to worry about stuff like that. We don't have existential threats to our sovereignty, to our safety. I mean, we do, obviously, but they're all internal. They're all coming from inside the house, right? It's all like it's our financial system and like the quote chosen people, right? That work against our own interests, work against our interests in service of themselves. But these are hidden, right? They're causal. They're not like existential. It's not happening right now. And so a lot of people have just gotten comfortable with the fact that, yeah, this is just the default state, right? You just have like, innovation, progress, we get a little bit more socially liberal and, that's just how things go. It's like things didn't even go like that here, until like the 20th century. So it's like, no, this is not, everyone's gotten way, way comfortable with this is just how things are. This is not just how things are. This is how things have been. And we're facing a reality where it's not going to be like that for much longer.
neglect of how they really function is splitting society apart. Like a complex civilization, a car engine works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you realize very quickly that unless you had intentionally taken the time to learn, you have no instinctive understanding of how it actually works. All you know how to do is press the gas pedal. And it is this sort of ignorance that has led so many people to have the perception that the natural state of humanity is akin to a perfectly running engine. But when it breaks down, instead of being able to pop the hood and work on the mechanics, these people are simply insisting that we just need to start the engine and step on the gas. They yell that all it will take is just hitting the gas, and then we can all get back to our road trip toward endless progress. Elon Musk, in his recent interview with The Economist, displayed this exact sort of behavior that I'm referring to.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right. In fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
Okay.
What you call the far right, falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes.
I will say there is something to this. Like, there is something about this sort of concept that the far right, as it were, is just a normal person from 20. There actually is something to that, in the sense that what was acceptable no longer became acceptable. So people thought like, oh, this is normal, and this is like my normal point of view, and then that became radical to the enemy, to the left, to the destructive left. And so there is some truth in what he's saying and what Joey's critiquing here, that you know, the Overton window shifted, the container of who was acceptable, what point of view was acceptable, shifted so much that there is something to that. But it's insufficient, right? It's insufficient because it doesn't have like a base. It doesn't have a foundation that no matter what forces act on you, this is your principles, this is your foundation, this is your base, right? It doesn't have that. It just has like a sense of what was normal. Like it doesn't have a principled, like researched understanding of why I even thought that was normal.
Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks that I think is funny. One thing that is quite funny is to like take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama.
See, this is exactly the problem. Like this is the intellectual dark web all over again. This is Elon advocating like this quote return to normalcy is like, yeah, we just want to go back to things as they were in the 90s. And while I understand that and I empathize with it, and I don't even think it's that like flawed, what people don't understand is that, listen, the 90s was a step. It was a piece in the journey of this. It can't, that's not a stasis point. You can't maintain that because that was on a trajectory, right? The whole thing has been on a trajectory to this point. This is the inevitable end of this sort of the radical left, like the destructive left. What's that guy? I always forget his fucking name, but that dude, Gramsci, is that his name? Who was the Marxist who basically the long march through the institutions guy? Like it's just they couldn't press the pedal all the way down, right? Woke, right? The 2010s woke. That was supposed to be the final push to completely crush the right forever. That was the goal. It was going to be like a 1984 style unpersoning of anybody who went against the regime, right? But the thing is, like, that was because they had all institutional capture. They had universities, they had media, they had social media, they had financial institutions, they had, HR had its hooks and everything. They had the ability to do that final crush. Luckily the American people and people in general were resilient to it. So people fought back and they actually lost a lot of ground there. But you can't just go back to the 90s. There's no such thing. That doesn't exist. That wasn't, like I said, that wasn't a stasis point. That was just a step on the journey. And there's a lot of things you can see, this sort of proto-grievance studies, there's proto-woke in the 90s. It just wasn't mainstream. And it wasn't broadcast to everybody on their phone. People just weren't that exposed to it. It wasn't that widespread, but it was there. That same anti-colonizer like sentiment, that was all there. Critical race studies was invented in like the 80s. All this shit, it just it hadn't been implemented yet. It hadn't been captured yet. But it was there. And there is no going back to the 90s.
Actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
I agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm talking
right,
about
please.
people.
It's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people. And and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe?
But none of that. Like, this is the problem. I think this is why this video that Joey did is so important. It's like, that's not the point. Can never be to convince the left that, hey, I'm actually just talking from a reasonable point of view. What I'm advocating for is baseline normal is a reasonable thing. The grievances of the left, especially the far left, there is no like, oh, okay, we did it. Good. Now I accept that. It will continue to push and continue to push until the entire society is destroyed. And the white Christian men at the core of the society are displaced forever. That's their goal. That will be their end goal. So there is no like, oh, well, you don't appeal to them because it's not about that. They're not having like a rational conversation with you. They're lying. It's a deceptive thing. They're preying on your empathy and your compassion to execute their goals. There is you don't need to try to appeal to this normalcy. Oh, we're just middle of the road shit. Fuck that. That's all dead.
And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in, but let me
Don't cut this part.
It is in his appeal to normal people, or as his caption suggests, common sense.
Hey, idiot. Everybody repeats what other people said. That's all talking is, dumbass. Everyone, you're either repeating something that you read, a philosophy that you understand, a concept that you've worked out with someone, but it's all part of other people's point of view. It's all, that's every single thing anyone's ever said. What do you think? There's like someone wholly unique, untouched from the reality around them, from the society around them? Like, what do you say? You say that I have conviction that my point of view isn't mine, that I just adopted other people's talking points? First of all, like, that's politics, right? But secondly, it's like, these are my own thoughts. These are my own concepts. I'm attributing the author of certain points and giving them credit and then filling in the difference with my point of view. I don't know what you're trying to say. Well, then fucking go somewhere else, dude. Bye. I don't give a shit. You find it boring. Okay, guess what? You're on YouTube. There's other options. Go there.
That he reveals the fact that he doesn't really know what defines a normal person. It is purely a vibe-based analysis. He remembers a time when the engine of society worked, and he asserts that we've all just spaced out at a red light or got distracted on our phones. You can tell in the specifics of people's language whether they have truly thought about the underlying logic of their prescriptions. And Elon's are shockingly vague.
That's exactly right. This was the thing that like really like hit me when I was watching this video. I was like, fuck yeah, exactly. It is like a vibe-based thing. There is so much about like American politics or just political discussion in general. It's kind of like what feels right, what like resonates with you. It's not necessarily whether it's like factually or foundationally strong. It's about like, oh I think I agree. I think he's right. Yeah. Oh no, I am just a normal person. It's like that. What does that even mean? Like what's normal and where and when and by whose standards? It's like it's not empty, but it's like a like intellectually hollow worldview, an intellectually point of view.
He implies that a secure border is an obvious stance to have.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
And yet, could he describe how H-1B hires apply to such an idea? Or what metric would satisfy the definition of a safe city? Or what measures would be acceptable to accomplish such a thing? And what is sensible spending? Does it include centralized banking and fiat currency? Upon further investigation, you quickly find that the general masses that appeal to these broad ideas have no clue what their words mean besides the vibe that they create. And this almost always applies to their entire worldview, not just from a political perspective. They will give moral directives like, just be a good person, it's not that hard. While having
it's exactly what I was talking about with like this concept of morality, this sort of like everyday morality that people have, where it's just like, oh yeah, that's normal. That's what's being a good person. It's like, you know, by whose standards, and what are the limits of that, and when do you go outside it, and what is in that like kind of secular context a sin? Like how do you define all that? It is just sort of this vibe. The whole thing is a vibe. He's right. Oh, sorry, I didn't. Should I have not repeated what he's saying in there? Gripe, bang, flex, whatever the fuck you're saying. Because every single thing, I shouldn't even use the same words. I should pick new words compared to what Joey said. Otherwise, you're just repeating what other people said. What a fucking asinine criticism.
Zero ability to even define what a good person is. Their shock that some people simply cannot comply with these commands comes from their assumption that people are rationally self-preservational and moderate. Because of that starting point, they can't comprehend the idea that some people may be explicitly acting against their own interest or against the interest of society and humanity at large. This leads them to believe.
It's also like you can use this like on pick an issue, right? Pick an issue like immigration. It's like, oh, what's a good person? Well, a good person, according to like the radical left, would be to just like let everyone in and give them all the billionaires stuff. Like that would be a good. That's how you are a good person according to them. But another person who would be like, no, a good person is to like protect me, my family, my culture, my history, and to not just let in invaders take over everything. So whose definition is right? It's a subjective concept. When you say, oh, just be a good person, just be good on immigration, it's like everyone's obviously different perspectives have a different definition of what that means. But people do flippantly throw that around. It's just about being a good person. It's like, oh, like spreading an ideology that would like warp children's brains so that they give themselves hormones and cut off their genitals because they were tricked into believing they become another gender. That's being a good person. It's like, according to like the radical left, according to like the LGBT extremists, then yeah, that would be you being a good person. So these don't mean anything. Like these words, like these casual concepts have no root in reality. They're just things people throw around. They're flippant concepts that aren't grounded in anything.
That all broad negative outcomes must be a misunderstanding, or at worst, the result of a sloppy incentive structure. This is why they refuse to believe that things like mass migration could ever be done with the intention to destroy Western society. No, it must be corporations responding to bad economic incentives, with the poor demographic outcomes and the resulting crime being a second-order effect. That core misunderstanding is also why they think that eventually people will come to their senses. They talk about the pendulum swing, another fraudulent lens to view the world, which implies that one day powerful people will wake up, look at the metrics, and like a business owner after a bad investment say, whoops, guess we have to change that strategy. But
even if that was true, right? Like that's a terrible strategy because it's like, well, wait for people to come to their senses. It's like, okay, but by that point it might be South Africa. It might be Rhodesia. It might be fucking over by that point. You know what I mean? It might be they're boiling your children. Like at that point, it's like, so like that cannot be a political strategy if you're actually trying to save the sovereignty of the West. It can't be like, well, let's just hope people come to their senses. It's like, no. We're on our senses right now. Let's fix the problem. Who cares how they bitch? They bitch about everything. It doesn't matter. It's like, it's the thing we were talking about with Trump earlier. It's like, if he was serious, right, he wouldn't have given a shit what the media said. It's like, yeah, obviously there's going to be protests for mass ICE raids. That should have been understood from the beginning. And people getting killed by putting themselves in the line of fire with federal officers. Okay, I mean, that's too bad. I'm sorry for their family. But, oh fucking well, don't get involved with the police when they're doing a hostile action of trying to deport millions of people who don't want to go. That's going to actually, it's going to end in violence sometimes. Like, that's too bad. Stay home instead of disrupting a federal operation. That's an option too. But, you
don't realize that the liberal revolution has already finished carving out the decaying ethics of the society they grew up in. Our current moral framework doesn't even articulate a way back to normalcy anymore, nor can it even define it. For the most part, almost nobody alive understands how the engine of society ever worked at all. And because they do not understand what actually composed that prior state of normalcy, they have no ability to actually appeal to it. They can only generate vague calls that offer no limiting principles, which is why they say things like, look, I don't care about X, I just don't want it pushed on children. While most of these people probably couldn't even define a child properly. Hence why we get women calling age gap relationships predatory or pedophilic.
That's a really good point. I heard like Fuentes at some point was talking about how age of consent was like a feminist concept. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know where he was going. I was like, what do you mean? And then he walked all the way through it. It's because of this sort of, this like overly this promiscuous sexual culture that we have. And that, it used to be when you reached a certain age, like the Bible, like had it pretty well defined, and that the culture was actually just more like, you didn't need all those types of these lines. And this is an age of consent. And on this side, they're a minor. And on this side, they're an adult. It was like the system was kind of already worked out. And I was like, damn, that was really, I don't know that I would have connected that. I don't know that I would have drawn that connection. I was like, that was very, very insightful.
None of their views from just about top to bottom are based on any sort of principles. If we are to have a properly oriented society, we will have to rebuild and redefine our foundational assumptions. If we do not do this, the current dominant hegemony will continue leading to further degeneration. And it is no accident. All the defined truths and principles of our prior Christian society have been removed. With this having been done, there is no end to the abyss. There is no point in which people spontaneously wake up and come to their senses. We are operating on a new philosophical framework that facilitates everything we're seeing. If we wish to stop it, we will have to install guardrails to halt the degradation. None of this.
It's exactly like what I was saying. Like, the engine of liberalism is to push back, is to criticize, is to continue to tinker. There isn't like I said, there is no 90s. There's no stasis point, because the entire political philosophy is flawed from the root, right? Even Lockean liberalism, like, even if you look at like what he says about like the state of nature of man is wrong. It's that, what was it, like, man in the wild, life was short, nasty, and brutish, or something like that, and then like chose to come into society. Something to that effect is how he describes how man came to be. And then that's just not even close to accurate. People have always been in some kind of tribe or group. That's the foundational block of humanity, where people weren't just like individuals, like they were cats, like they were, had like a hunting territory, and then occasionally would approach another human and mate and create a baby and then just go their separate ways. Like, no, it was never like that. Everything was always some kind of tribe or culture or something to that effect. And it's crazy that that like the building blocks of our political philosophy they're broken. And so the thing is, it always has to go this way. It has to tinker. It has to redefine things. It has to tear more structures down, because that's actually its point. Because there isn't like okay, we did it, right? There isn't built into, this is the goal we hit, and when we hit that goal, we stay. No, it's open-ended. The whole thing is open-ended, and that's how we've ended up in the situation that we're in right now. And that it will continue to degrade, and it's going to continue to go that way, because it doesn't have like a strong nationalist framework. It doesn't have like a religious backbone. It's all fluid, and it can just be whatever it is. Whoever holds the reins of power can just start to define what it is. And that's when you see, right? Like when Charlie Kirk died, before he died, like some of the things that he would say about why Israel was such a great place is because they protected LGBT rights. And you're like, that's the virtue of a good Western society now? Like, that's from the conservative right wing. Like, that's the earmark of what makes a good society. It's like, yeah, once the institutions become captured by people who prioritize that hold it as like an important supreme value above family, above Christian morality, above whatever, then yes, that does become the standard, because there isn't defined. It's elusive. It's vapor. It doesn't have like a definitive, this is what it is, because it can be manipulated by anyone who stands in the halls of power. And that's exactly what has happened.
This is the random descent into madness. Small tweaks in the foundations of a general worldview can create massive swings to reality over time. And we have removed so many of our foundational views that it is actually no surprise at all that we've gotten to where we have. Jay Dyer recently explained to Tucker how this type of process can occur.
Basically, there's an idea in the Middle Ages called nominalism. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Okay, so nominalism is the idea that there are only names to things, not essences. So there's no human nature. There's no dog nature. When we talk about natures or classes or sets of things, we're not giving an ontological or metaphysical status. We're just simply classing things together linguistically in a set. The Middle Ages in the ancient world, the time of Paul or the church fathers, they thought very differently. They thought that things have natures, they have essences. And so the words aren't just terms or nominal nameism. They actually describe what's really there in them metaphysically. Okay. So there is human nature. And in Orthodox theology, Christ assumes.
Who would deny that?
In the Middle Ages, it begins with people like William of Ockham. So Ockham is the first nominalist.
See, I hadn't heard this conversation. I don't really watch Tucker anymore. I mean, sometimes I do, but he's so wacky and he's so inconsistent, and it's so hard to like not look at him as now like a total spook, with all his contradictions and all the things that got exposed about him. You're like, so you're like this gee whiz honest guy, but you probably also work for the CIA. Like, that's an important detail, dude. It's a very important thing. I have to know that I'm listening to a spook. I can listen to a spook, but the fact that you're hiding it is incredibly suspicious. So I don't really watch. But this conversation, I was like, damn, this is a great conversation. Like, hearing this guy and this concept that, like, the words they like, and that's something that, like, a big tool of the left, right? We see that all the time. You know, man, woman. That's a great example of like how they can just redefine that because it doesn't have like this theological connection. It doesn't have like a foundational, no, this is what this means. The essence attached to that word actually has a deep and concrete meaning. And I'm like, damn, this is fascinating. Like, this is so accurate, you know, because it's like people do that all the time. Like, you'll be arguing with someone or you'll be having a discussion with someone and they'll be using a word intentionally differently to manipulate the conversation, to manipulate your perspective, and to keep you off balance because we're not even arguing. We don't even agree on what that thing means, what that actual, like a noun. We can't even agree on that definition. And that's like the whole thing shifts and it keeps you off balance. And it's hard to defeat an argument where you're having a discussion where someone's saying a completely different thing, but using words that you identify for something else. And this whole concept was like, damn, that I like that. Like, there's something like ontological about, there's something like, you know, spiritual. It's like, fuck yeah.
And
the man with the razor.
Exactly. He's known for that. And he challenges some kind of established ideas of like essential. It's called essentialism, that things have essences. And so he also goes up against this idea of universals, that there's no such thing as a universal class or essence of a thing. And that had been kind of the norm since Plato and Aristotle as well. But so you get a denial of essentialism and essences, and then you get another guy named Gabriel Bile, and he's very influential on Martin Luther. And so when the Reformation kicks off, there's this debate about how could you be called righteous if you're not in fact righteous. So if as a human being you are, you know, menstrual rags, as Isaiah says, as the Reformer said, then how could God call you righteous without being a liar? What enter in nominalism, and nominalism is able to say, because things don't actually have essences, they just have names. And so if God calls you that, you are that legally, even though in actual fact you're wicked. So that was, and Luther was very happy to utilize that nominalistic approach. And by the way, this is not just my theory. There's famous Lutheran scholars. There's a book called Harvest of Medieval Theology by Heiko Oberman. And the whole thesis of that book by a Lutheran is that, Luther had to use nominalism. So we're also, though, moving away, not just from theological squabbles, but the idea that things have natures. And this is how we get to David Hume and Kant and these Enlightenment figures, which give us.
This reminds me of something when I first kind of encountered the kind of left-wing, shift of definitions of words. This is probably over 20 years ago. I was in, maybe it was exactly 20 years ago. I was working at this restaurant in Manhattan, and there was this girl. And I remember just saying, it was like a fact that I had collected. That I was like, oh, that's really interesting. That like a nymphomaniac, I haven't researched this in a while. This is what I understood to be true at the time. It may or may not be. But that a nymphomaniac is a woman with the sex drive of an average male. And she goes, don't judge people. Like, you can't judge people like that. And you're like, this is biology. This isn't like an opinion. I'm not even casting a judgment. I'm just saying that is a fact. That, there's a sex drive default for men and there's a sex drive default. She couldn't even accept that essence, that nature exists, that it's a standard, that there's like a biological, predisposition. That was in like 2006 or something. And it's like, it's crazy. That is, I think, one of the most wicked tools to use is to deny essence, deny like truth in a thing that we know is observably accurate, but you shift that for your own political or social goals. It's like, that's specifically to me extremely wicked.
The, scientific revolution, supposedly, this is how we get to, there's no male and female. So you can see kind of the logical train here. If things don't have essences, well, then they don't actually have genders, right? Objectively, because everything is just a name. So I can just name myself he, him, zer, z, it, right? I'm not trying to go too fast or too far in the sense of like You're not theology, but I'm saying there is an ideological sort of progression that you can get from nominalism to where we are now with postmodernism, and then with essentially.
It's interesting that an adult could believe in something like that. I mean, having lived your life, known people, known animals, seen nature.
See, this is the thing that fucking annoys me about Tucker is that just sort of like, wow, that's how could even, wow, it's amazing. You're like, stop acting so befuddled. Stop acting so like that's happening out there. People are manipulating the roots of words and using them. Yes, dude, you know that. Stop. Like, that's the thing that always bugs me, because sometimes he does it to kind of like serve up his guest, like a meatball that they can just crush out of the park. But sometimes he does it and you're like, bro, you are not that stupid. It's like when he criticizes Fuentes. It's like, bro, you are smart enough to know that his political analysis is high level. You don't have to agree with it. You might not like his diagnosis or whatever, but to just act like he's just some guy who even gives a shit, it's like a lot of people, and for very good reason. You know that. You are smarter than that. Stop pretending. It's the thing that always bugs me, is that insincerity of Tucker. Oh, gee whiz. Like, he's just, oh, I didn't even notice. I was just up here in Maine just with my dog fishing. I couldn't even. You're like, God damn it, dude. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. And arrive at the conclusion that nothing has an essence. Everything is just what we call it. Like that flies in the face of your experience. It has to, right?
What's that saying that you have to be an academic to be really stupid?
Yeah,
right? I guess
that's right.
Yeah. To be indoctrinated into believing some sort. I remember Terence McKenna. Do you remember the psychonaut Terence McKenna? I remember reading him one time, and he said something like,
"This is all just magical thinking. This, if you take the shroom, you're going to see that things don't have essences, that things just have names, and you just change the name."
And I'm like, that's the gender idea right there.
There will be plenty of pseudo-intellectuals that will needlessly try to refute what Dyer said here, and they will challenge his specifics. And while I am not knowledgeable enough to verify the details of what he's pointing out, the context is hardly important, because the logic of what he is saying is undeniably true. If you remove a foundational categorical understanding of what makes somebody a male or female, it is almost inevitable that the removal of such hard categories will eventually lead to a world that cannot properly distinguish between the two. Something like transgenderism only looks like madness because the older generations believed that the definitions of male and female were so self-evidently obvious that they didn't need to learn how to actually properly define them. And that has been our downfall. Had the elder generations understood and then held to the firm principles that once composed their Western society, most of the leftward degradation wouldn't have even made it through the front door.
And I think, additionally, like I think the older generations are immensely responsible because of them just being on the train, right? Them just being on the metaphorical train of life and society and just participating in it, and not taking inventory of what actually defined it, what made it great, what made it not great. They're all such liberals. Like, even the conservatives are like liberals, and it's very frustrating because you didn't take inventory on this stuff, and when they kept pushing the boundary, you might have thrown a fit or whatever, but you didn't stop it. You didn't allow it to you didn't allow the flood, the waters to discontinue, and that's the most frustrating thing. And a lot of it is because it's just a lack of taking an interest in your own culture and your own traditions and your own values, because so much of their movement, of the boomer movement, was to destroy all that because it was out of touch, because it was sexist, because it was racist or whatever. But then, it's like there was enough evidence in their day to realize that that was the wrong move. If you look at the way they treated the 60s, right? The 60s was this big uprising, this big revolution that, destroyed the concepts of a lot of these institutions and their authority and got rid of it. But immediately following that, the 70s was just crime ridden like crazy. Like, that should have been enough evidence to recognize that, oh wait, these foundations were wrong. And now maybe you can give them a little bit of credit because the 80s were much more conservative. conservative, and you had Reagan and all that type of shit. But still, the creep continued. They didn't build the walls back up. They didn't reorder the institutions. They just sort of were like, oh, okay, it's like the whole Elon thing. It's like, oh, we got back to normal. Now everything's fine. Now we can just go back to, pursuing comfort. And that's the biggest civilizational crime, is that they didn't take an interest in this stuff. They didn't define their foundations. They didn't define what was that important and what was worth fighting for and what was non-negotiable. They just, kind of just left it up to the news boxes telling me the truth and everything's going to be okay. And, we did great. We're not in Vietnam anymore. And yeah, we really did it. This civilization is great. We beat communism. Everything's fine. And then just as it continued to grow and spiral out of control, they had no way to fight against it. They all just throw their hands up. And you see that the left is still like default in power because of the way they still feel these needs to make appeals to them. Even though we all understand that their philosophy is destructive in its very nature, that the left is by definition a destructive force that does want to take away from the foundations, like the institutional, that's the wrong word, like the cultural heritage of the West. That's like their goal. They still feel this need to appeal to them. And it's insane. It's like, you don't need to try to convince them. They will never be convinced. Just do what needs to be done.
If society were to have held firmly to the principle like life is sacred in all circumstances, then you no longer have a debate on abortion or euthanasia. You can't proceed past that principle without violating its baseline foundation. But after we let go of that principle, the conversation quickly turns to a lump of cells or even harvesting organs. And soon enough, the line at which it is said to be morally acceptable to abort a child stays in perpetual motion. And if you give it enough time, you reach the point in which you can abort children up to and even after birth, which is where we are now with all of society. We don't know how to stop anything from going too far because we don't know how to define what anything actually is. But these outcomes are actually perfectly predictable and, in fact, the logical conclusion of a world that has removed the ethical parameters that once held together the past. We are not going to feel our way back to an ordered society. We are going to have to rebuild it from first principles. We will have to relearn what made past societies great.
He's 100% right. And then they need to be immovable. They need to be ordered in a way that to contradict them is to contradict the society. You can't have a gentle adjustment of definitions, of parameters, of morality, of these things. No, they need to be solid. They need to be pillars with which we can look up to and understand how to order everything else following that. He's 100% right. I texted him and I said, Joey, this feels like you're etching the fucking words into the foundational stones of New Rome. Like, this is how that feels to me. It's like, it's that inspired and visionary. It's like, fuck yes, exactly, dude. So that this doesn't happen again. So that you do not have to keep a watchful eye on every single thing the left is up to. Because all you need to recognize is when they violate the principles, and they just say no. And we all say no. And that's our society. And these are the things that just they need to be established. They need to be organized, and they need to be explicit, and they need to be uncompromising. He's 100% right.
And hold to those principles. Only in the defense of strong foundations can we hope to protect against the political entropy of leftism. The battle will always be over the line of distinction. It has been weak men that have compromised on these lines in order to placate entropic feminizing forces across the last century and beyond. And it has been those
100%, dude. And you can give an example to, like, if you're my age, if you're a millennial, to your father, right? To any of your fathers who allowed a society, who allowed participation trophies to exist, that they didn't say absolutely not. That destroys the concept of earning things. They're not going to get a foundational understanding of working hard and failure and struggling to achieve something. This is just going to give them like a comfort that they didn't earn. And it's patronizing on top of it. Like they're not retarded. They're children. It's different. And they didn't stand up for that. They let stuff like that go. right? It seems like a little bit of a thing, and maybe it is, but it represents something. It represents this flattening, and it represents the feminization, this sort of just like, oh, but Billy didn't win. It's like, Billy's not always going to win. Billy needs to lose sometimes to understand how to overcome and how to persevere. And if you don't give him that at a young age, he's not going to understand when things don't go his way. And you can see that. That's the millennials to a T. That's the entire generation. It's like things don't go their way and they like fall apart. They screech. It's like that's what happened with entertainment. That's why it's like the bar is so low and the quality is such shit. Yet, it's like it just keeps moving forward, like bending to their whims instead of like accomplishing something fantastic. Instead of that being the ideal, and I just think that those things are important. And it's like the prior generations let those things go, and they weren't little, and they had impacts.
Compromises which have led us to this state, not forgetting our common sense. There is no normalcy to return to. We will have to build the new status quo entirely from scratch and give up the fantasy that everybody is simply going to snap out of it and return to this sensible state. There are still liberals in South Africa.
Fucking based. I like that final line. There are still liberals in South Africa. Right? It's like all you have to do is look upon ye works ye mighty and despair. It's like, look what that got you. Look what that got you. And yet it's like this thing I was talking about with my mom. I was trying to convince her that like women shouldn't have the right to vote. I was kind of trolling her a little bit, but it's the proposition, right? It's like, okay, is your right to vote, which we all pretty much agree is meaningless, is a hollow power that doesn't really have any impact, except when you're talking about giant demos and not an individual in any way. Is the ideal of having that right more important than the health of the society, right? If you could trade off that right, but you knew by trading that off the society would get better, like, would you be willing to do it? And she said no. And it's just like, I mean, thank you for making my point, but also like that's the problem is people, these things that they hold so sacred. And it's like, okay, so the trade-off is we just let the society go down in flames because we don't want to have an uncomfortable conversation of taking away what's perceived as a right. Yeah, no, we can't we can't order a society like that. That just can't be how we do things because it will end. It has to end. That's an inevitable end if that's how it goes. And I try to explain to these liberal women too. It's like, you think that the authoritarian right, the Christian right is brutal or something or too harsh. It's like, wait until you see what the like third world authoritarianism is like. Wait till you see what that's like with death squads and corruption on a real level where you can buy your way out of prison, where drug lords run countries. Wait until that's the reality. Wait until that's the default. That's the normal. You'll beg. You'll be on your knees begging for a authoritarian Christian right, but by then it'll be too late. So it's just like, you don't know what you're getting. You don't think it's not going to be more. Someone will seize power and they will use it against you. You want it to be the good guys. They just don't listen. All right. This is a little bit more. It's a political culture war thing. I'm going for a little while. It's Shoe0nHead. If you're not familiar, Shoe0nHead is I think she really typifies and like describes like what a YouTuber is. She doesn't really do video essays necessarily, but does videos on cultural subjects, right? Politically charged subjects, but not super deep. It's not like a really like scholarly analysis. It's more of like, this is stupid. Look how fucking dumb these people are from like kind of a base perspective. And so she did a retrospective of her own videos because she's been on YouTube since almost the beginning. I think she says like 2014, which is like, I don't think YouTube's much older than that, maybe another 5 years or so, but it wasn't what it is now, that's for sure. And she's been on YouTube since back then. And so she did a retrospective of her videos and I was like, damn, fucking I didn't even know about her when all this was going on in like the 2000s. I didn't realize how based she was back then. How like she took on these subjects when it was really not okay to take on these subjects. And I was like, fuck yeah, this girl deserves her flowers. So we're going to watch her video of I Survived Woke 1.0. And I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it.
So the other day, I saw a tweet. I feel like all my videos start out like that. The other day, I saw a tweet that said, Woke One was crazy. Attached to the infamous photo of Nancy Pelosi and a bunch of Democrat politicians kneeling in African costumes back in 2020 to honor George Floyd. What a fever dream. There were many similar posts from people talking about how crazy Woke One was, or Woke 1.0 as they call it. Leftists talking about what they did wrong during Woke 1.0, how they came off too strongly with things like abolish the police, and how they'll do things differently during Woke 2.0. Yeah, you'll get him next time, champ. And don't get me wrong, 2020 was crazy. At the time, I was a bit preoccupied trying my hardest to get Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard elected. I don't want to talk about it. But yes, from what I remember, 2020 was crazy. But that was not Woke 1.0. Woke 1.0 started long ago. Long ago when being woke was called being an SJW. Back when Anita Sarkeesian was public enemy number one. And
yeah, like 2020 was like the high watermark. Like culturally. That's when we all sat in horror and witnessed the fruits of what that would be when the progressives were in power. It's like, oh, it's horrifying race riots with zero incentive to stop them. In fact, incentive to continue them during what was supposed to be the most deadly global pandemic since the fucking Black Plague, and that you couldn't go outside unless that going outside was to riot and steal sneakers. That was okay. And that's when we all, like, even if you weren't politically minded at the time, like everybody could just see the like horrifying reality, and then the overreach of the government and all the performative race apologizing and the white guilt. And that was when that was like the monster had taken full form. So, but that was not, I used to say this when I would do like media commentary with the YouTubers, who are on the kind of like the right wing of like YouTube of media conversations. Guys who just want Star Wars to be Star Wars and not be gay, black, lesbians and shit. But like they would always say it started in 2016, and I would always push back on that. It did not start in 2016. Like that's when they fucking hit the accelerator. That's when like they put the nitrous into the tank and like and it like went full. But no, it had been going like that for a while. It just wasn't full on. It was all that stuff was already being pushed. It just wasn't everything. It wasn't every single thing. Trump was the catalyst. Him winning was what sent the entire thing into overdrive. But it had been for a while. It was, and because I was in LA, I was in Hollywood at the time, and I'm reading these scripts and I'm seeing how this shit's coming down the pike. And it was well before Trump got elected, how girl bossy and feminist and race, gay race communism, it was all there. So this was not, it definitely did not peak in it definitely did not start in 2020. It started under Obama.
I identify as an attack helicopter, believe it or not, was a joke young people told, and not your 65-year-old uncle on Facebook. You see, Woke 1.0 was not George Floyd and COVID masks, no. This was Woke 1.0.
Learn what mansplaining is, and then stop doing it.
This was the thing, too, that I found so fascinating about the Gen Z right, as I got to encounter them last year, as I got to learn who they were, was the fact that I'm like, oh, they came of age during all this shit. Like I was an adult already, I was in my 30s probably, probably late 20s, early 30s while this was all going on. And it was upsetting, it was jarring. I was like a fucking a liberal at the time. I moved from New York to California, and I like, I was like attacking power, but I was like a left winger. And, I remember like coming up against these people and being like, whoa, you guys are crazy. This is too far. I don't know what we're talking about. I just want like banks to not get bailed out by the government and us to stop all these crazy wars. Like this, I don't know what you're on about. This is nuts. All this race shit. And Yeah, it was, and I learned, like, when you learn that, oh right, like these guys were young kids at the peak of that, getting that messaging like in the classroom, like from probably their parents, from just everywhere, and it's like, oh, no wonder they're all like so like principled and focused and on the right for real. You're like, yeah, that would be the result of that. That makes perfect sense. I just never considered it.
Hello and welcome to the Shoe0nHead channel. I am your host, Shoe0nHead. You may also know me on Reddit as every e-girl combined into one insufferable millennial woman with fetal alcohol syndrome, or perhaps just Asmongold on HRT. As I am filming this, it is the 12th anniversary of my first video on this channel. 12 years. 12 years a slave to the algorithm. So in this video, we are going to react to that video as well as a few other old videos of mine. We're gonna see how well or how terrible everything has aged, because let's be real.
Was anybody in the chat like on YouTube during this time? Because I don't think I was. I think in 12 years ago would be 2014. I mean, I don't think I watched YouTube like that. I know I would watch like comedians. I'd watch like their specials. I used to use it for like media analysis, like movie analysis. Like if I watched some like opaque, like David Lynch movie and I didn't understand it, like I would go to YouTube to get like analysis, you know, like to some video essayist would help me understand all the fucking like, you know, fine arts degree message or metaphors and stuff that they use in the movies. But no, I don't think I was there. I don't think I was on YouTube like for the culture war stuff. I was on meme sites. I spent a lot of time on 9gag during a lot of that. And that was a pretty good pipeline for based memes and stuff, but I was not on YouTube for it at all. I was on YouTube before the bridge incident. The bridge incident. What does that mean? What is the bridge incident? Only thing that comes to mind is like during COVID when that in Detroit or whatever, or Baltimore, where they destroyed that bridge. What's the bridge incident? I can't think of anything. Let me know, Camarillo.
A lot of this shit aged like milk. Wait, why is the arrow pointing this way? What the weird?
Oh, when was that? PewDiePie? Why was it? What's the bridge? What happened? I wasn't watching PewDiePie. I remember I dated a girl in LA and she was a singer and she loved it and she was younger than me. And I remember thinking like, I don't know how these kids watch this shit. I don't know if it was PewDiePie. It was somebody. And he was like playing a video game. It was like a horror video game. And he was being like all like his, oh my God, you know, like his reactions and everything were so over the top. And I was just like, who finds this entertaining? I found YouTubers detestable. Remember they tried to make them into celebrities. They would try to put them in the movies. And I was just like, this is all slop. These kids are so over the top. They're so animated. I hated YouTubers. I was not into it at all. The whole thing made me feel disgusted. I mean, there was an apocalypse after that. Adpocalypse. I remember that happened. On the bridge, in PUBG. Okay. So that was like 2017. Okay. I remember hearing about that, but like I said, I wasn't really in touch with that. I wouldn't say that I got into YouTubers like this medium until I want to say 2019. Does that maybe 2018, 2019? I was spending a lot of time on YouTube looking at media, like movie stuff, you know, entertainment stuff. And I think that's how I started to find like the critical drinker. Yeah. When was the collapse of Game of Thrones? When was the final season of Game of Thrones? Because that's when I found critical drinker. And that's when I realized that there was this community online of guys talking about like media and movies like that. They were like these alternative critics, you know, and that was a big deal for me because I was in LA and just everybody was just glazing the gayest, most feminist bullshit. It was like living in hell, man. It was just like living in like, you know, a town where every brick building, like all the buildings are made out of brick and everyone's telling you that they have aluminum siding. And it was just insane. I mean, it was so draining to be around that all the time. So when I found those guys, I was like, yo, yes, like I found my fucking people. This is great. I was so excited. So that must have been, I think that was that 2019 or 2018? I want to say that was 2019, but 2015 YouTube skeptic takedown videos were so good back then. Yeah, that was like Gamergate. I heard about all that later on. I think, well, no, I knew of it. I knew that it happened through the meme sites, but I was not aware of the scale of the controversy and how like impactful that was, and what the pipeline of like Gamergate to Trump, Gamergate to Fuentes in 3 easy steps. I was not I was not aware of that at all. None of this would be happening if we had video game journalism. That's so funny. Yeah. And I knew video game journalism sucked, but I was not aware. I wasn't aware of all the cultural factors that were happening. I mean, it took me so long to figure out that there was something bigger going on than just like every individual I met happened to also be like a crazy progressive. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it took me so long to actually connect the dots. That there was, oh, wait, this is all happening on a grander scale. And what's funny is I should have already known, because I went to college in the 2000s and I took sociology courses, and that was woke. That's what that stuff was. It was race obsessed. It was gender obsessed, gay obsessed. It was inverting all of the things. But I kind of took that as like, oh, that's just this class. That's just these people. Normal people aren't like this. And they weren't. And then it was the years later that it became everybody. It was like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All of a sudden, everyone's a pod person, and they're all, talking about power plus privilege equals racism. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Why are they like this? And then it's like, oh, of course. Yeah, college. Yeah. I liked Colin Moriarty when he was still at IGN and was then fired, forced out. Yeah, that's true. There were so many purges. They were like Stalin-like purges back then. Everybody was just getting got. If you said anything like mildly right wing, like they were just coming for you. I remember, I didn't have like the word for it, but I knew it existed. Woke just crystallized the entire thing. And I don't think we had a word for that back then. But I remember there was a website called cracked.com where I would go and they would have these really interesting analyses of like Ace of Base songs hidden, like actually being like white supremacy kind of allegories or like Nazism or something like that. But it wasn't coming from like a pussy ass perspective. Like it was like enlightening you to this stuff. I mean, it was a Jew who wrote it, and obviously he had like an axe to grind, but it was still like, it just didn't feel woke. It felt actually enlightening. And there were so many articles like that. And then one day the whole thing was just like feminism and men and race and all this shit. The whole website had just been transformed, and I just never went back to that website ever again. But it was like, it just started popping up and people just started getting got. And it was, I remember like Anthony Cumia of Opie and Anthony, he got fired in like 2014 for tweeting some really racist stuff. It wasn't even that. I mean, nowadays standards, it was tame, but at the time, people looked at it as incredibly racist. But yeah, it was like a purge started. So true. I don't even know why people buy video games anymore. Whole industry needs a reset. I actually think there are some really good video games now. They are unfortunately still populated with like stuff you have to like compromise on. Like I'm playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right now. Cause I played it when it came out. I guess that was last year. And then I played the old one, and then I got hungry for the newer one. And it's still an incredible game with such good mechanics and some of the best RPG mechanics I've ever played. Like your skill level, the numbers on your character sheet, the skill level really affects your in-game performance. It's so when you level up, you really, really feel like you level up. But they did include that you could fuck your friend Hans Capon if you wanted, that Henry could be canonically gay if you wanted him to be. It was ridiculous. But other than that, the game's great. Baldur's Gate 3 I thought was fantastic, but you can fuck literally everything, even the Mind Flayer, which is just like, what the fuck, dude? And it's weird the way that game would play it. It would be, you're on your adventure, you're on your Lord of the Rings type journey, and then like, every person in your group propositions you. And then I think about like what that would have been like in Lord of the Rings. Like, if Frodo, Sam, Pippin, they're all going, and like Pippin tried to bang Sam and Sam was like, no. Like, wouldn't that make the entire rest of the journey like really awkward? Like forever? I just thought that was so weird that they included that. It was like every single, you could have your pick of it, including the Mind Flayer, which made me think that the developers didn't want to do that and they were getting put pressure on them to include it. So instead they're like, all right, you can fuck anything. You can fuck animals. You can fuck the Mind Flayer. You can fuck anybody. Go for it. You're all in. And as a way to just kind of make fun of it. I don't know. That might just be something I want to, that might be cope on my part because I like the game so much, but that's sort of how it felt to me because it's so absurd and it's so out of place. Everything else is so good. They tried to tarnish all the markers of American identity, gaming included. Oh yeah, especially anything that men liked, anything that men were appreciative of, their cultural spaces, anything, because it was a purge, it was a witch hunt. It was like we had, they elected Hitler, so to speak, in their eyes, and we can never let that happen again. So we need to work in every way to make sure it does not. And then that's what that's what that was. And, every industry has just been so hollowed out and just captured. And I think in some ways there will be remnants of it forever. I don't think Hollywood's ever going to go back. We might get good movies here and there, but I think forever it will always have to be the scientist character is always going to be like an African woman. I think that will be, some of that is permanent, at least for a very long time. Hello, Smelly Balls. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Going to talk about Woke 1.0, the ancient lore of me and my channel, how the Overton window has shifted so far since then, how stupid everything looks back then in comparison to things happening today. I feel like every morning we wake up and we are living through the news moves so fast. There's pressure to react instantly, to pick a side, to condemn, to support. But the reality is, when a story first breaks, we're not seeing the full picture.
Hello, Trumpy Bear Armageddon. Oh my God, she's unbearable. I like Shoe0nHead. I'm a fan of Shoe0nHead. I know, Nick Fuentes says no e-girls, and I respect that, but I think Shoe gets a pass. She's a veteran of this. She's been around. And that's the whole point of me watching this video is she's going to show some of her old takes. And I was impressed with them. I was impressed with how, I don't even think I was that based in 2014. I don't think I got it back then. I don't think I understood the scope of what we were facing. And I certainly don't think I had the insight to the anatomy that she does, which I think is kind of to her credit. So I got to give her, you got to give her credit. They were Howard Stern liberals, where they talk like shock jocks, but had the same politics of Daily Beast writers. College humor was another one. Oh, that's a really good point. I like that. That's succinct. You're right. Absolutely. Maxim magazine liberals. Yeah. Well, we all were. I mean, that was kind of the default. I think I was, I wasn't far right. I was really conservative in high school. But I was Sean Hannity conservative. I listened to Michael Savage and Sean Hannity. That was right wing like that. But that's not really right wing. That's conservative Inc. So I thought the Iraq War was a great idea. She has typical. I disagree with you. I think that's because we'll see. I would like to change your mind on that. But we will see.
That's why for years now I have been using today's phone. Even stable I am currently using for code and endearing things that have been happening lately is people will discover my channel and then they'll make reaction videos to my videos and they'll title them things like Shoe0nHead is done with the left. Shoe0nHead is finally waking up. And it's I've been woken up. Do not cite the anti-woke magic to me. Nuxtaku. I was there when it was written. Before your girl was commie mommy, for better or worse, I was one of the founding fathers of anti-woke content on the internet. I saw this one tweet that was the idea there was a woke one is the most jarring to America's moment I've ever had. Really, bitch? I mean, I get it. I would pretend it.
That's that thing where the left, they just pretend things aren't. They just pretend things are not. They just deny their existence and their reality. They just, no, we're just going to go with the line that there never was a woke. It's it's just the most insulting thing because it's insults your intelligence. It's so anti-God because it's anti-truth. And it's no, there was a political push by the far left and you change the definition of it every day. there would be things you would say that 2 years later, if you were to repeat saying those things, you'd be out. You'd be the Nazi. You'd be the Trump. You had to rush to the front line of whatever crazy woke nonsense was coming out of people's faces, and you had to like say it like you've always been saying it. The idea that they're going to try to pretend that didn't happen, you know, and they love to use terms like gaslighting. It's like, that is a gaslighting on a nationwide scale, dude. Like, it's all historically there. That type of shit drives me fucking crazy when the left does that.
Never happened too. It was very embarrassing, but really, bitch. I was there when Bernie Sanders was talking about unions and had his microphone snatched by Black Lives Matter. That was basically.
Remember that? I think that was probably what killed his momentum for a while there, because he seemed like an alternative to, you know, if you didn't want to vote for Trump, or you thought that he was fake, like I did. I didn't even think he was real. I thought the whole thing was a manufactured concept. I thought his entire run was like the plot of The Producers, where they were just going to create like a candidate that would be so bad that Hillary Clinton would easily defeat him. I didn't believe any of it was real. When he won, I was like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. I was not right about that. But to a lot of people, Bernie seemed like an alternative. And then when he got bitched around by those Black Lives Matters women, it would just seem like, oh, no, you're a bitch. You're nothing.
Basically the birth of my entire political worldview. You can't pretend that shit never happened. I was there when a grown-ass scientist was harassed and brought to tears for daring to wear a shirt with like cartoon pinup girls on it. We need Nuremberg trials for all the 2010s. You should legally be forced to wear some kind of patch on you in public to identify you as a woke 1.0 freak. When I saw that tweet,
I agree with this diagnosis. Yeah, Donald Trump, if you can hear us. Definitely, dude. Definitely. I agree. Enact that policy now.
I literally had to stop writing my other video to make this one because I was like, okay, I'm not gonna let these people rewrite history. We're not gonna let you write the history books, okay? Who do you think you are? Ghislaine Maxwell's father? So I'm going to be talking about 4 different videos here. Oppression Olympics, Social Justice League vs. Gamers, Average is Beautiful, and Questions for Men Answered by Women. I'm not going to be showing the full videos because this video will be 4 hours long, so if you want to watch the full videos, the links will be in the description. Thank you, I love you, bye-bye. So Oppression Olympics was my first cultural, political video, uploaded July.
So, Trumpy Bear Armageddon, if you're still here, which I hope that you are, think about the context of this video, right? This is 2014. And not to mention, she was in her early 20s, right? Okay, so this is Obama is still in office and woke is on the rise. I was saying earlier how I noticed that it was rising back then. And a lot of people said, you know, started credit to 2016. And I would say, nay, it was happening before that. But I don't think I would have had the prescience and insight to articulate it in the way that she does in her video, like in her takedown of it. And for that, that's not midwit. That's actually like very insightful and pretty fucking brave, because the repercussions back then were you got fired, you know, you got attacked, you know, you got like your and there was no recourse, right? If you get like deplatformed back then, like that was it. There wasn't an alternative. There was no Rumble, you know, and Twitter was not Twitter as it is now. Twitter was the blue checks on Twitter. Remember that? The landscape was very different. And for her to go out there and kind of deconstruct this woke shit, fucking based, man. I don't know. She deserves credit in my eyes.
July of 2014. 12 years ago. How old were you guys 12 years ago? I am like 60 years old in internet years, like 204 years old in e-girl years. If you have been here, if you have been with me for that long, you deserve like some kind of reparations or something. Like, you have seen some All right, I am about to watch it. I am so scared. I haven't watched this in years.
Hey there, pretty lady. Do you wear heels? Do you wear makeup? Do you want to go on a diet and get thin? Don't do any of those things. Hey, I'm a feminist. That's right, a feminist in 2014 America.
Can my voice even do that anymore? 2014 America. Oh, I can. Okay, never mind. Pretend I didn't do that. All right, let's go.
What does that mean? That means means I want you to stoop down to my level. And that means don't go on a diet, don't wear heels, don't do makeup, don't do your hair, don't try to look pretty. I get catcalls all the time and I hate it. I just love vlogging about it though, and I love.
I think you also have to remember too, like, this is obvious stuff, but it wasn't that we lived in 1984 times. This stuff wasn't, you didn't see this shit on the internet. It didn't exist. You know, the internet generally existed to like support the establishment and to support the far left. I mean, that's how I remember it. And I remember you would be bombarded with this stuff all the time. Like I remember seeing, I think it was on Twitter, there was this video going around of this girl was being catcalled. She like filmed herself walking around a city, and and it was like when you saw her, you're like, Jesus Christ, girl, it was bait. She had like her tits all out, this tiny skirt. You're like, obviously you're gonna get catcalled. But then they showed the video, and of course it was all black and Hispanic guys, obviously, because that's who catcalls. And all the comments in the video were like, and she, because the point was to prove that sexism exists, right? And how awful it is for women, even though she's dressed like a total whore and walks around the hood. But then, like, it was all the comments were like, "Oh, and she edited out all the white guys. She's racist." Blah 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 blah. And it was just like, really, we can't even get credit for the shit that we don't do. But that was like the climate, and that's all you'd see. There wouldn't be if there was some right winger. I don't even know where they were, on Fox News maybe. It just didn't really exist like that. There wasn't like all these commentaries channels and outlets. As far as I was aware, I was on the internet. I remember the best I had was like Opie and Anthony would like trash stuff like that. And they're kind of liberals too. Like Kumi is, pretty right wing, but socially he's pretty liberal. So there just wasn't, it just didn't really exist. So for her to go out there on the internet as that was at the time and put this out there without, by the way, it has millions of views now. This is her first video. She's just putting it out into the void. Like I remember getting in trouble for like comments I left on like Facebook posts or whatever. I made like a joke and then like all the woke people came after me. I said I was at the gym. I said the music at the gym was giving me AIDS. And then like all these woke people came after me because of that joke and saying it was about how, AIDS was like the gay cancer. And you're saying, we know what you're saying about gay people. And it was like this huge attack. And I was like, it was just a fucking joke. It was just so bad. It was giving me a disease, and AIDS seemed like the funny disease. But yeah, it was, I don't know. It was different back then. I feel like, you got to give her credit for this. Target, I can see why everyone thought she was Boxy back then. The real Boxy was super woke leftist and was already one even back then. Yeah, I only heard of Boxy from this stream. People always say that. And she mentioned that. She called herself Timu Boxy. I don't even know. See, I wasn't on YouTube back then. I don't know who Boxy was. Trumpy Bear. Yeah, I'm not going to hold to someone's 2014 opinions approach against them unless they were really malicious. But that's the thing. The woke was really malicious. It was very vicious. And there was never, it's like the thing now. It's like, I was thinking about this, like with the Iran war and all the MAGA and boomers who were like, oh, the panicans, and they're worried about this war. Well, there's no, what's that word? There's no like, contrition. They haven't apologized for being incredibly wrong. And all the people who were incredibly wrong about COVID, they haven't apologized either. We haven't gotten their mea culpa. And this is the same thing I think that she's pointing out with like the woke shit. It's like, no, there should be. There was vicious. It was hostile. There were consequences to this. It was very destructive. I think there should be repercussions for what people, if you haven't apologized, if you haven't acknowledged, yeah, no, there should be. I disagree. Remember Humongous? I don't. Actually, I don't, no.
Blogging about it on my Tumblr. And shaving? Forget shaving. Don't shave. This video game character is dressed too sexily. I don't like it. Change it. I'm dressed too sexily and you don't like it? Stop oppressing me. Did you guys know that rape is bad? Rape is bad. Does anybody know this? Rape is bad. And if you're not a feminist, you're pro-rape.
Dude, this would have been like music to my ears in 2014. This would have been like the greatest. I never heard anything like this back then. Like, obviously I knew it, and I knew comedians that made fun of it. I mean, like, if you remember, guys, remember what it was like back then. It wasn't like it is now. Like, Rogan with like the IDW, with the intellectual dark web, that was around this time. That was the rise of the Weinstein brothers, the rise of James Lindsay, the rise of Jordan Peterson, because it was a breath of fresh air. It was people who understood what was going on and could articulate it. It was like, yes, thank God. So for her, like, and it was a big deal. It's a cultural moment. Those videos still are some of his best performing episodes. I think probably top 20. But those were huge moments. I mean, Jordan Peterson became a superstar because of that type of shit. And it was because there was no alternative. The media certainly had no alternative. And so for her to go out there and say this then, I think, look, she deserves a lot of credit for that. I think that you guys are forgetting what things used to be like.
Oh, good, it's over.
Oh, fuck, she's back. Feminism in 2014 America is completely pointless. It's just a label that people are putting on themselves to feel special because—
Why do I sound so cute?
It's just a label people are putting on themselves like, oh, someone protect her. She doesn't know how bad it's gonna get. It's the special snowflake oppression Olympics. Everyone is in this big race to be the most progressive and the most open-minded and the most oppressed. It is the strangest thing I have ever seen.
And she's right. I mean, that's an accurate diagnosis of what the left was like back then. And the rise of woke and the ramp up, that's exactly what it was. That was the climate. And for her to call that out, like, insightfully like that, props to Shoe, dude. That's good work.
And it's like infesting like the internet, and it's starting to seep out into the real world. And like, I really don't like it.
So a little lore behind this video before we continue. First of all, Obama was president. Okay,
She looks, and not to mention, she was also like a girl who was in her early 20s. She should have been, by all rights, she should be the person propagating that type of message. I mean, those were the shock troops. Were girls in their 20s. They still are. I mean, those are the Mondami chicks now. Those are the people, those are the shock troops who push the message the most aggressively because they have the most social capital. And so it's like, for her to not only not do that, that alone deserves credit. For her to counter signal it accurately with insight back then when she was, in her 22 or however old she was. Fucking based. So badass. Trumpy Bear. When I say there shouldn't be consequences for what the left has been doing, when did I say? You said, yeah, I'm not going to hold someone's 2014 opinions approach against them. Am I misreading that? And then you say, when did I say that there shouldn't be consequences? Right here. You said you're not going to hold it against them, so I don't understand. I don't know what you're saying.
This was before the Trump era. In fact, this was like months before Gamergate even popped off. This is ancient. Some of you don't even remember a time before Trump. Like, Trump is your normal. You don't remember what the political and cultural landscape was like before Trump. That is like crazy to me. Anyway, at this time I was like 23, 24, working at a makeup counter in the mall, and I noticed all the people around me were changing. Their personalities were shifting. They were becoming like very unfunny and like offended at everything. It was very weird. One example.
That's exactly right. This video is 2014, and I was living in New York City in 2011 and moved out to California that summer. And that it was a few years after that. It was like 2013, 2014. That's when I first started. That's when it was everywhere. That's when I noticed that it was like everyone I talked to had just become like some kind of psycho race activist, feminist on steroids. Like the degree with which everything had lost its mind was so nuts. And like I said, I didn't even know about YouTube. So, if I had any kind of insight or prescience, I would have made a type of Shoe0nHead video. But I didn't get it. Like, I didn't understand how widespread it was. I didn't understand how like civilizational of an issue it was. It's And it's not like it was. Yeah, it was big. I guess I just can't overstate how much credit she deserves for. No, I was referring to Shoe there, not the left. I still don't get it, dude. I don't know. I think we're miscommunicating here. I'm trying to give her credit for her base takes from 12 years ago, which I think is quite impressive, to be honest. And you were saying she's a midwit, and I'm trying to illustrate that no, she isn't. That's it. That's all. That's my goal here.
All that sticks out in my mind for some reason was my friend screamed in my other friend's ear. My friend was like, you're gonna make me go deaf. And then my other friend was like, that's not funny. My brother's half deaf. I don't know why that one sticks out, but like that was a pivotal moment where I was like, what the fuck is going on? Also, we later found out that her brother was in fact not half deaf, but anyway, the only thing I traced it back to was they all used the same website.
This video is mostly about...
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Oh my God, is that Big Red? Oh my God, just blast from the past with this face here. This woman.
I thought about her like a few years ago. I was like, oh, whatever happened to that bitch? Because she wasn't there during the big woke times. I remember she was like for the you know, who was it? Who are those groups? Oh, she talks about the honey badgers, the female, the women who like fought for men or whatever. They would talk about Big Red, and I remember that she was like the center of so many of these controversies. But then she just dropped off the face of the earth when that grift or this person should have been capitalizing on it. She should have been like one of the queens, you know, until they took her down inevitably. But it would like, yeah, she just disappeared. She was just there for a while being a total cunt and then just vanished. Like, whatever happened? She doesn't have like a YouTube or a Twitch. Just gone, as far as I know. She was around in Toronto. Oh, she's a Canadian. I didn't know this. Trumpy Bear. Yes, I appreciate her pushing back on the quote left back in 2014. I just don't consider what she's doing to be the solution. Solution to what? I don't know. She's just a commentator. She's a take seller, as Basil puts it. I don't know. I'm just giving her credit for being based early on. That's why I titled it Shoe0nHead was always based.
Should get some kind of like compensation for being on so many YouTubers' thumbnails. She was the face of the triggered feminist SJW for years.
Number one, shut the f up for a second. Now, if you would shut the f up for the 50th billionth time.
And then it was
God, what an unlikable pig, huh? This used to, I mean, we lived in like feminist tyranny back then, dude. These women ran the discourse. This is who you'd hear from. And then the best pushback you'd get, apparently it was Shoe0nHead, I had no idea. But the best pushback you'd get would be like Jordan Peterson and Rogan and stuff, comedians. You know, that's where the outlets were. That's where you heard a contrary point of view. But this was everything. This was social media. You know, this was Twitter. This was the news. It was everything. It was everywhere you went. God, things were different there. Her name is Shanty Binks. Are you getting me to Google something horrible? I hope not. No. Okay, cool. It actually is her. Internet personality. Oh, wow. So there's a Reddit post from 10 years ago that says Shanty Binks speaks up after 3 years of harassment. 10 years ago. And then, oh, Mizzou, this is not even an article. But where is she? Doesn't have like any kind of, is she trans now? No. Yeah, does she have like anything? Is she still around? Not that I'm like dying to hear from Big Red, but I'm just curious. No, it doesn't seem, she just seems to have just disappeared, which is crazy. She could have capitalized on that like huge. Not that I want her to, I'm just saying. Feminists still run things, it just manifests differently now. It's nonstop TikToks, OnlyFans, etc. Yeah, but there's at least contrary voices. There's at least a healthy population of right-wingers and men who push back on all this bullshit. That like that's its own ecosystem. And the biggest creators do not support that. So yes, it still exists, and obviously it's an institutional problem, but it's just the landscape is different. That's what I'm saying.
This other person. Where are these people nowadays? I wonder what they're up to.
Tumblr is the reason there is just this outbreak and infestation of SJWs, ruining my internets and ruining my real life and just sucking the sense of humor out of so many people I know.
Tumblr was very popular back then, but there was like some dark evil energy coming from it, and I sensed it. And at the time, that is where I thought all this woke SJW shit was coming from. Little did I know, like, a lot of these people on Tumblr were college kids. All this like rape culture, white supremacist bullshit was coming from the college classroom. And at the time I didn't know. I was just a humble makeup salesman, so I
don't think any of us knew. I didn't even realize it for a long time either. I didn't actually put it together for a while. It wasn't even until like, God, I don't know, what was it, 2021 when I read James Lindsay's book on the subject called Cynical Theories, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. I probably knew before that. I probably knew back in the 2010s with Peterson and shit. Yeah, but still, it was like the fact that it was so widespread. Like, I don't think anyone realized that the colleges were just pumping out these sort of like communist, feminist, racial activists. I think that was not clear to many people. At least they didn't connect it. So I'm sure some people knew. I didn't. I don't know. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know who Milo Stewart is, and I don't know who Trigglypuff is. I like all this internet nostalgia, but I don't know who they are. And you also got to give it to Shoe too. I mean, she's the only one from that era who's still relevant. Maybe Sargon, you know. But PewDiePie doesn't even stream anymore. Like all the guys who did like jokes and stuff back then. Who was the Filthy Frank? Like he's like a K-pop star now and stuff. None of them really lasted. You know, I mean, the IDW, they sure didn't last. I mean, there's not a good man amongst them anymore. You got maybe Eric Weinstein, but like, you know, Jordan Peterson's a joke. James Lindsay's a joke. You know, those guys, I don't know who else. Who was the other one? Who's the one I never liked him anyway. And I'm not just saying that because he's obviously hated. Who's the guy that, what is his name? He debated Jordan Peterson about like the meaning of meaning or something. He's like a Jew. He's like, and he's got all the wrong takes. You know, he's wrong about COVID, wrong about the Iraq War, and like doubles down. What is his fucking name? Anyway, would it come up if I Googled intellectual dark web? Sam Harris. Sam Harris. I never liked Sam Harris. Oh, Dave Rubin. That's right. He was one of them too. Douglas Murray. You ever been?
was really confused and I felt like I was going crazy. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to boot up the Shoe0nHead channel. I'm gonna vent and make a video. Nobody's gonna fucking see it. I don't care. As far as I knew, there was no other videos online talking about this subject. So I just filmed it, edited it, uploaded it, and left. Like, I didn't check the comment section, and I didn't even know that Thunderfoot, a YouTuber, shared my video, and that's how it originally blew up. And from there, I found out, oh, there's more people who agree with.
Yeah, I stand corrected, Trumpy Bear. Dave Rubin is still around. But he's a lol cow. You know what I mean? He exists for us to feast upon. Like, he didn't he do like a Jubilee, one of those like those crossfire debate things, and like just got clowned the entire time. So, you know, he's not like he's relevant or anything. Like, Rubin wasn't, I mean, he had the shortest run of relevancy. I think I found him on PragerU, maybe? And he was talking about how he was a lefty who came to the right for like economics and just kind of, and had like a pretty good dismantling of socialism, as I recall. But then that's about it. You know, look, I think the Israel question is the real question. You know, if you're on the right, that's the real question. You know, what's the line? It's like, if you're pro, you're done. I mean, it's like, you don't really, that's the litmus test. You know, if you can't pass that, then yeah, you're not really on the right. You're not really like a nationalist. You hated Dave Rubin from the get. I like I said, I gave him credit for the video. I think I remember I watched that. And, you know, probably thought it was, and then just so you're like, oh, no, this guy's a fucking joke. This guy's a joke.
me. I found like Sargon of Akkad and like the honey badgers. It was crazy to feel like, oh, I'm not going insane. Things are changing.
They're all in this big competition to see who could be the most progressive and the most...
Yeah, no, that's true. All these former leftists becoming major right-wing figures. I mean, that was the thing, right? It was like Trump's entire admin was staffed by like former Democrats, like Tulsi, RFK himself. Not that, what's his name? JD was ever a Democrat, but he was an ever Trumper, which is just as good. And so, yeah, I mean, no wonder they failed. It shouldn't be that shocking, to be honest.
Tolerant, at the same time being the most annoying and the most intolerant people that I've ever met in my life. It is just a big, it's the oppression Olympics. Labeling yourself as a feminist, stop it. It is not a movement anymore. You do not need it. Nobody needs it. You have every single right that every guy has now. Like most feminists on the internet just hate men.
Now, if you can believe it, and this might be hard to believe while watching this video, this was transgressive back in the day. This was like crazy to hear online back then, especially coming from a woman. We're saying things like, oh, feminism.
Coming from anybody in 2014. I just can't overstate it enough. We are going to wrap up there. I think that's going to do it for this episode of Right Wing Pulse. This is the weirdest stream because I don't know if any of you were here at the beginning, but I started a stream at 8 o'clock. And people just dropped out because they're like, I don't know, I can't. It's buffering. There's all this latency issues, and it just couldn't stream. I'm like, what the hell? I like checked my internet connection, everything's fine. So I don't know. I just had to like restart my whole rig and everything, and now the second one is working. So that's it for this episode. Catch me next week, and please. Look, I did a video on my channel on Foul Ball Productions where I will be on Tuesday for the MFR podcast, which I am most Tuesdays to do my show, the MFR podcast. But I did a video that I worked really hard on, and it was about the Iraq War. Right, it's not exactly a hot topic. However, I wasn't clear about the impact of Israel's influence on that war until very recently. So it kind of blew my mind. And I haven't really found a really good comprehensive video on the internet discussing that very subject. So I did a really thorough deep dive, and I'm working on a huge project about that. So the whole video will be out, I don't know, in probably a few months. But right now, part 1 is out, and please go watch it. Please give it a look. I would really appreciate it if you checked it out. I worked really hard on it, and I think it's good. I think it's very useful information. So that's all. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Right Wing Pulse. I'll see you guys on Tuesday over on my channel, Foul Ball Productions, or back here next Sunday. Y'all have a great, fantastic evening. Thank you very much, Trumpy Bear. I appreciate you. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for hanging out with me, guys. All right, peace out.
I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue.
I mean, Keir Starmer's not...
Well, he did make a call about this.
No, Keir Starmer is every bit as enslaved as Donald Trump is. It is illegal. It is a crime for which you can be arrested in Britain right now, criticizing Israel.
I want to cut my off and scramble my brain with fucking fluoride. I'm gonna win because Netflix is worth $3 trillion. I can't believe the dollars are this high.
It's a society that hates God. It's a society where the family is completely deconstructed and destroyed. It's a society that hates Nazis but loves communism.
You're always confronted with the same stupid question. Does Israel have a right to exist? Does Israel have a right to exist? The real question at this point is whether the rest of the world has an obligation to put an end to this.